I'm reading it right now. This is the Delaware Court decision. And this is my first live stream, I think, on the X platform. I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know how I'm going to read the chat. Is there a chat? How do I read the chat? I don't know how any of this works, but we'll figure it out, or we won't figure it out. I've restricted the chat to verified users. Okay, so this is the court decision here. I think there's a lag. I don't know what... well, let me pull up. Let's see. So this is the court decision here. Richard Tornetta, apparently some dude who... I do this. Okay, Richard Tornetta, apparently some dude who owns like 8 or 10 shares of Tesla, somehow able to file this lawsuit against Elon Musk, Robin Denholm. These are board members of the Tesla board and Tesla, the corporation. And then a bunch of lawyer names, just so you know what's going on here. And then this is the judge's name, Judge McCormick. Was the richest person in the world overpaid? This is not necessarily typical for judges to do. The judge is, where is there a chat? How does this work? Person in the world overpaid. This is not necessarily typical for judges to do. Just so you guys know, I don't know where the chat is, and I don't know if I'm going to figure it out. So I'm just going to go ahead with my video, and we'll see how it works. Person in the world overpaid. This is not necessarily typical for judges to do. Just so you guys know, I don't know where the chat is, and I don't know if I'm going to figure it out. So I'm just going to go ahead with my video, and okay. Still working this out. First time live streaming on X. So the stockholder plaintiff in this derivative lawsuit says so. He claims they breached. The plan offered, he's describing the plan here. So 12 total tranches, 4 tranches to vest. Tesla's market cap has increased by $50 billion and other targets, with a $55.8 billion maximum value and $2.6 billion grant date fair value. The plan is the largest potential compensation opportunity ever observed in public markets by multiple orders of magnitude, 250 times larger than the contemporaneous median peer compensation, and over 33 times larger than the plan's closest comparison, which is Musk's prior compensation plan. Okay, so multiple orders of magnitude. I think it's 1.5 orders of magnitude larger than Elon's previous plan. Post-trial decision enters judgment for the plaintiff under the finding that the compensation plan is subject to review under the entire fairness standard. The defendants bore the burden of proving that the compensation plan was fair, and they failed to meet their burden. Okay, so this is an important step to understand as a lawyer. Enters judgment for the plaintiff means Tesla loses. Finding that the compensation plan is subject to review under the entire fairness standard. I don't know what the entire fairness standard is yet. I don't know what led to the decision that that's the standard that applies, but it leads to this conclusion, and we'll find that out when we read the decision. This is a 200-page decision, so this is probably going to be a long live stream. The defendants bore the burden of proving that the compensation plan was fair, and they failed to meet their burden. So because I don't understand how to interact with the chat. I don't know if there is a chat. I don't know how I would interact with the chat. I thought I set up a chat. I don't see a chat. So I can't, I'm really frustrated by this. This is one of those things like, can somebody tell me how to interact with the chat? I don't even know. Okay, so if somebody understands how to operate a chat, let me know, because I don't see it. And I will check my DMs occasionally to see if I can figure out, like, there's no button to turn on the chat. There's no, like, I thought I configured it for a chat. Anyway, all right, let's get back to the decision. So they failed to meet their burden. So here's the key point here. There's a decision that the judge makes. What standard am I applying? If I apply this standard, then the burden is on the plaintiffs, which is the guy suing Tesla, that he has to show something. If I decide that the burden is on the defendants, that means Tesla has to prove that the plan was fair. That's the critical decision early in this decision is the decision who has to prove that the plan is either fair or unfair. And if you have to prove the plan is fair, that's a harder standard for Tesla to meet. A board of directors decision, and is this readable? A board of directors decision how much to pay a company's chief executive officer is the quintessential business determination subject to great judicial deference. But Delaware law recognizes unique risks inherent in a corporation's transactions with its controlling shareholder. Given those risks under Delaware law, the presumptive standard of review for conflicted controller transactions is entire fairness. So the plaintiffs argue that, so this is the first step. Was the plan a conflicted controller transaction? In other words, does Musk control Tesla? In other words, is this a case where the compensation plan was decided by objective board members, or was was there a conflict among the people controlling the decision? A conflict as in a conflict of interest. So Delaware courts have been presented with this question thrice before. Let's check something here. Shamara says the video looks good. Thank you. We're watching the chat. Is there a chat? I don't know where the chat is. How do I find the chat? Why can't I see my own chat? Ah! If I go here, can I see the chat? No. If I go full screen, I still don't see the chat. Come on, man. All right. So this is just the comedy of live streaming and doing stuff you don't know what you're doing. I know how to read court decisions. I don't know how to do live streams. Delaware Court questions have been presented with this question thrice before when more adroit judges found ways to avoid definitely resolving. This decision dares to boldly go where no man has gone before, at least where no Delaware court has tread. Okay, so this is an important detail. I don't know how appeals work in Delaware. When a judge is following, this is how we've done things, when a judge is following, this is how we've done things before, then if the judge has followed how things are done before, you're less likely to win an appeal. I don't know whether there's an appeal possible in this case, but since the judge is openly saying, no court's decided this before, I'm the first one, well, that would suggest that there's an opportunity for a higher level court to review the decision. If you're winging it, basically pulling it together, then that's a challenge that leads to a potential appeal. Whether Tesla will appeal, whether Tesla will do some other thing, we'll come to that later. The collection of features characterizing Musk's relationship with his Tesla and its directors gave him enormous influence over Tesla. In addition to his 21.9% equity stake, Musk was the paradigmatic, I think that's Elon's equity stake before the pay package was awarded. He was the paradigmatic superstar CEO who held some of the most influential corporate positions, CEO, chair, and founder, enjoyed thick ties with the directors tasked with negotiating on behalf of Tesla, and dominated the process that led to board approval of his compensation plan. At least as to this transaction, Musk controlled Tesla. So, I assume we're going to find this details in the decision. This is the judge, I think, summarizing what he found after he reviewed the evidence. I don't know. It's my impression that Elon did not dominate the process of board approval of his compensation plan. My impression was that Elon stayed hands off, that Kimball stayed hands off, and that the board, Elon negotiated a package, the board reviewed it without Elon's push. Maybe we're going to find out over the course of the decisions that Elon pressured the board, that he used his influence, his share, ownership, his other influence over people, and he pushed for what he wanted. I don't know. So enjoyed thick ties with the directors tasked with negotiating on behalf of Tesla. Okay, so Aaron Price, I'm guessing, is the guy he's referring to, but we'll find out. The primary consequence of this finding is that defendants bore the burden of proving at trial the compensation plan was entirely fair. Delaware law allows defendants to shift the burden proof under the entire fairness standard where the transaction was approved by a fully informed vote of the majority of the minority stockholders. And here Tesla conditioned the compensation plan on a majority of the minority vote, but the defendants were unable to prove that the stockholder vote was fully informed because the proxy statement inaccurately described key directors as independent and misleadingly omitted details about the process. Okay, so the claim here by the judge and by the plaintiff, and I don't know whether the judge is being fair or not, defendants were unable to prove the stockholder vote was fully informed because the proxy statement inaccurately described key directors as independent. Okay, I assume we're going to get these details later. The defendants were thus left with the unenviable task of proving the fairness of the largest potential compensation plan in history. So this is the critical detail. This is really the critical detail. The proxy statement that we voted on, I'm pretty sure I don't remember what the date was of this plan. What was the date of this plan? January 2018. I think it was January 2018, and I would have voted on this plan because I own stock starting in February 2016. So I believe I voted for this plan, and I would have voted for this plan even if I didn't vote for this plan. So the key decision the judge made here is, I'm going to say, even if on the fairness standard, I think the plan was fair. But what he's arguing, the idea is when you have the shareholders vote and approve the plan, you're okay. But the shareholders have to be fully informed, and the judge is claiming the shareholders were not fully informed. Is he right? I don't know. Let's see if we're getting any other messages from people. How are we doing? Yeah, no chat. People are chatting. I don't know where the chat is. Just ignore the chat. Yeah, I'm gonna ignore the chat. Okay, folks. So, all right. Let's see. The primary consequence of this finding is defendants bore the burden of proving at trial that the compensation was planned, allows it to shift the burden of proof where, okay. So we covered that. So left with the unenviable task of proving the fairness of the largest potential compensation plan in the history of public markets. In other words, this is the largest potential compensation plan in the history of public markets. If any set of attorneys could have achieved victory in these unlikely circumstances, it was the talented defense attorneys here, but the task proved too tall in order. So, and the concept of fairness calls for holistic analysis. Just give me 1 second. Sorry, this requires air conditioning. I'm in a new Airbnb condo in Bangkok. So the process leading to the approval. So the concept of fairness calls for a holistic analysis that takes into consideration two basic issues: process and price. The process was deeply flawed. Musk had extensive ties with the persons tasked with negotiating on Tesla's behalf. He had a 15-year relationship with the Compensation Committee Chair, Ira Ehrenpreis. I guessed correctly that Ira is the person he's blaming. The other Compensation Committee member placed on the working group, Antonio Gracias, had business relationships with Musk dating back over 20 years, as well as the sort of personal relationship that had him vacationing with Musk's family on a regular basis. The working group included management members who were beholden to Musk, such as General Counsel Todd Marin, who was Musk's former divorce attorney and whose admiration for Musk moved him to tears during his deposition. In fact, Marin was a primary go-between between Musk and the committee, and it is unclear on whose side Marin viewed himself. Yet many of the documents cited by defendants as proof of a fair process were drafted by Marin. Okay, so I'm reading this, and I think I'm naturally concluding I tend to believe what a judge writes when a judge writes it, even though I might not like the result. So this is true. He had a long relationship with Ehrenpreis. He had people know, I think Gracias might be on the board of SpaceX as well. One of the challenges of running a large corporation is you're supposed to have independent board members. When you have independent board members, and Robin Denholm is a good example of someone who's probably an independent board member. He hasn't mentioned Denholm yet. And I would assume that Denholm played an important role in this decision process. But, the board is Kimball, Musk. Now, Kimball stayed out of this decision making, but Ira Ehrenpreis is somebody who's been tight with Elon for, as the judge puts it, 15 years. at the time. And Gracias had a business relation with Musk dating back over 20 years, personal relationships. The judge is showing here that the people who are making decisions, so there's a negotiation going on between Tesla and Elon. And the judge is arguing or explaining his opinion that the people on the Tesla board who are supposedly arguing for Tesla's interests are too close to Musk to be fair. I don't, I don't personally care about, I'm more interested in the result. I'm more interested in the consequences of the result. So we're going to get to that. I think it's a pretty fair point. I didn't read the proxy, so I don't know whether the proxy was fair or not. I think the proxy, what he's describing, judges make their decisions based on what they make their decisions on. I really think the ultimate question is the plan fair? And I think the plan was fair. But what he's saying is the process isn't fair. Okay. Given the collection of people tasked with negotiating on Tesla's behalf, it is unsurprising there was no meaningful negotiation over any of the terms of the plan. Aaron Price testified he did not view the negotiation as an adversarial process. I don't see that the negotiation has to be adversarial. There was no positional negotiation. The testimony came as close to admitting a controlled mindset as it gets. And consistent with the specific to Musk approach, the committee avoided using objective benchmarking data that would have revealed the unprecedented nature of the compensation plan. So yeah, look, we're going to get to this later in the decision, I'm sure. Is the compensation plan unprecedented? Yeah. But Elon got squat if the company didn't grow. So, to me, what we're going to get to later in this decision is the reason the plan should have been approved is because the value of the plan, according to all the experts at the time the plan was approved, is the value of the plan was zero because Tesla was never going to achieve the goals. The Gordon Johnsons of the world, all these other, experts, every Wall Street expert, it was like, well, Tesla's never going to get anywhere, blah, 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 blah. Only the true believers thought this was actually going to happen. Trying to stabilize my platform. I think I'm doing the exact opposite right here, but we'll see how it goes. So, and I'm sorry, I'm in a new space. I'm figuring it out. So I don't really have an ideal situation for doing this video, but we'll see what we can do. In credit to these witnesses, the testimony was truthful. That's very nice. The witnesses were honest about their bias. Okay. They did not take a position on the other side of Musk. It was a cooperative venture. There were no positional negotiations. Musk proposed a grant size and structure, and that proposal supplied the terms considered by the compensation committee and the board until Musk unilaterally lowered his ask 6 months later. Musk did not seem to care much about the other details that got ironed out. Okay, so right here, Musk did not seem to care much about the other details. That shows he's not controlling the transaction. Right? If Musk did not care about the other details, he had his, this is what I want, and he didn't care about the other details. If he was very focused on details, then it's not okay. So thank you, Shamara. Shamara's live blogging the chat for me. Thank you, Shamara. Don't write. I think Shamara's got the solution to the chat. Shamara is telling me what's happening in the chat, and that'll work fine. So Shamara, keep DMing me if you see something in the chat that I need to look at. So this is, I think this is an important distinction. If you're going to claim that Musk controlled the transaction, and then you're going to say he didn't care much about the other details, they got ironed out, well, then he's not controlling the transaction. It sounds like Musk said, this is what I want, lowered what he said he wanted 6 months later, and they just went along with what he wanted on the substance, but there's a lot of details involved, and he didn't quibble on the details. In this litigation, the defendants touted as concessions certain features of the compensation plan: a 5-year holding period, an M&A adjustment, and a 12-tranche structure that required Tesla to increase market cap by $100 billion more than Musk had initially proposed to maximize compensation under the plan. Wait, if he controlled the transaction and he avoided other details, and they raised the market cap by $100 billion more than he proposed, how is this a controlled transaction? Okay, I'm judging without seeing the judge's full analysis. But we've got two things here that go against the idea that Musk controlled the transaction. One, you just admitted he didn't care much about the other details. And two, I'm going to swear now, this is a pretty big fucking detail. Required Tesla to increase market cap by $100 billion more than Musk had initially proposed to maximize compensation under the plan. $100 billion more market cap. What was the market cap at the time? Like 40 billion? And, the market cap ended up hitting like 700 billion. Like, that's not controlling the process. If Musk didn't haggle over that and the board did it on their own. All right, so we have a problem. Okay, now again, I haven't read the whole decision. You're watching me read this live. So I'm reading the judge's initial discussion. And the underlying question, by the way, that I don't know the answer to, and I don't think I'll have the answer by the end of the stream is, can Tesla appeal? Is an appeal likely to succeed? My general sense is that when a judge like this issues a decision in Delaware, that's probably it. Either there is no appeal or appeals are unlikely to succeed. Given that the judge has said, hey, this is the first time anybody's ever decided this type of question, that does seem to leave it open to an appeal if there is an appeal, but I don't know if there's an appeal or not. The holding period was adopted in part to increase the discount on the publicly disclosed grant price. The M&A adjustment was industry standard, and the 12-tranche structure was reached in an effort to translate Musk's fully diluted share proposal to the board's preferred total outstanding shares metric. It is not accurate to refer to these terms as concessions. Okay, so what's happening here is the defendants argued, hey, we had features of the plan that protected shareholders and and increased the market cap by $100 billion more. So the judge is saying the holding period was adopted in part to increase the discount on the publicly disclosed grant price. So the M&A adjustment was industry standard, and the 12-tranche structure was reached in an effort to translate Musk's fully diluted share proposal to the board's preferred total outstanding shares metric. It is not accurate to refer to these terms as concessions. Well, if it's what the board wanted instead of what Musk wanted, then Musk is making a concession to the board. The board is doing something Elon didn't want. Oh, I guess what he's saying is, it doesn't change the outcome. It just changes how it was measured. I don't know. We'll see if he gets into that later. He probably will. Is this visible? Sorry. I think I pushed this. Okay. Okay. So, defendants also point to the duration of the process, 9 months, and the number of board and committee meetings, 10, as evidence the process was thorough and extensive. Elide the lack of substantive work. Time spent only matters when well spent. Most of the work on the compensation plan occurred during small segments of those 9 months and under significant time pressure imposed by Musk. Musk dictated the timing of the process, making last-minute changes to the timeline or altering substantive terms immediately prior to 6 out of the 10 board or compensation committee meetings during which the plan was discussed. Okay, so this is where you get to, did Elon control the process? Elon dictated the timing. Last minute changes to the timeline. I don't know that the timing matters. Altering substantive terms immediately prior to 6 out of 10 board or compensation committee meetings during which the plan was discussed. And that is just the process. The price was no better. So here's where we get to the really big meat of the thing. In defense of the historically unprecedented compensation plan, defendants urged the court to compare what Tesla gave against what Tesla got. This structure set up defendants' arguments that the compensation plan was all upside for the stockholders. The board's primary objective with the compensation plan was to position Tesla to achieve transformative growth, and Tesla accomplished this by securing Musk's continued leadership. Offered Musk an opportunity to increase his Tesla ownership by about 6%, from about 21.9 to about 28, at most 28.3, if and only if he increased Tesla's market cap from approximately 50 billion to 650 billion, while also hitting the operational milestones, right? This is the details of the trans. You raise the market cap in these steps, 12 steps, and you hit these milestones, revenue, and EBITDA. According to defendants, the deal was 6% for $600 billion of growth in stockholder value. At a high level, the 6% for $600 billion argument has a lot of appeal. Yes, it does. As a shareholder who watched the ride up, This was good. But that appeal quickly fades when one remembers that Musk owned 21.9% of Tesla when the board approved his compensation plan, gave him every incentive to push Tesla to levels of transformative growth. Okay, so what he's arguing here, this line, okay, this to me shows a bias, okay, that Musk's existing ownership stake already gave him adequate incentive. This is underlying what he's saying right here. Because Elon already owned 22% of Tesla at the time, he had every incentive already. So he didn't, what he's basically saying is Elon did not need to be incentivized any more than he already was. He stood to gain over $10 billion for every $50 billion in market cap increase, had no intention of leaving Tesla, and he made that clear at the outset of the process and throughout this litigation. Moreover, the compensation plan was not conditioned on Musk devoting any set amount of time to Tesla because the board never proposed such a term. Swept up by the rhetoric of all upside, or perhaps starry-eyed by Musk's superstar appeal, the board never asked the $55.8 billion question. Was the plan even necessary for Tesla to retain Musk and achieve its goals? Okay, so far I haven't seen, and I don't know whether Tesla argued this, the plan was arguably zero value when it was proposed. Like, what was market cap? The market cap was somewhere around $40 billion when the plan was proposed, or $50 billion when the plan was proposed. And all the Wall Street experts said, this is worthless because Tesla's not going to grow. Tesla can't do this. Tesla's going to fail. I think this is before the Model 3 ramp. I don't remember exactly when this happened. I think this is before the Model 3 ramp. And you know, Tesla nearly died. So, you know, and is he going to take into account the fact that Musk was sleeping on the goddamn factory floor in order to keep Tesla alive? And, you know, so I see a critical detail here. The judge is deciding Elon already had enough incentive with Tesla because he owned so much of the stock. I don't know what else is going on. That seems dubious to me. This question, because here's the thing, if Elon already has a large share of the company, then to motivate him, you need to give him a larger share of the company, right? What else are you going to do? And giving him 1% is not very motivating to a guy who already has 22%. So giving him 6% is a substantial motivation. This question looms large in the price analysis, making each of defendants' efforts to prove fair price seem trivial. Defendants proved that Musk was uniquely motivated by ambitious goals and that Tesla desperately needed Musk to succeed. But these facts do not justify the largest compensation. He keeps hitting the largest compensation plan. It's the largest compensation plan at the end after the stock grows and achieves the goals. I would argue it's the smallest compensation plan, or it's an extremely small compensation plan when looked at, you should be looking at this from the beginning. Was this a large compensation plan when it was awarded? What's the expected value of the compensation plan? Because he's getting no salary, right? Defendants argued the milestones that Musk had to meet to receive equity under the package were ambitious and difficult to achieve, but they failed to prove this point. Okay, now here, I don't know what happened. He claims that the lawyers were extremely talented and hardworking and did a great job. And then he claims they failed to prove that the milestones were ambitious and difficult to achieve. They failed to prove that the milestones were ambitious. And if they didn't prove that the milestones were ambitious and difficult to achieve, then they did a shitty job, right? So either they were great lawyers and they did a great job, or they were shitty lawyers and they did a shitty job. And if you're going to tell me they didn't prove that getting a $650 billion market cap and the revenue and the EBITDA were ambitious and difficult to achieve, I don't know. I don't have the evidence. I don't know what was proven in court. I don't think it's very hard to prove this was a really difficult thing to do. I think everyone knew when the pay plan was approved, wow, this is going to be really hard. I think we all knew that. We know that, in fact, getting Model 3 through without the company going bankrupt, achieving those goals, was extremely hard. Did they put in evidence that Elon slept on the factory floor? That he basically lived at Tesla for 3 years? Did they prove that? I don't know what they proved. I don't know what evidence was there. Defendants maintain the plan as an exceptional deal compared to private equity compensation plans. but they did not explain why anyone would compare a public company's compensation plan with a private equity compensation plan. Well, but when you say this is an outsized plan, like, well, what other CEO already owns 22% of the company? Right? What are you going to compare it to? Are you going to compare it to a company where the CEO owns 0.05% of the company, or 0.1% of the company, or 1% of the company? I don't know what he's comparing it to. Descendants insisted that the plan worked and that it delivered to stockholders all that was promised, but they made no effort to prove causation. Okay, again, don't tell me they're great lawyers if they didn't prove that the causation. You're telling me they didn't prove all the stuff that you're saying is necessary, and then you're telling me the lawyers... What did he say? Didn't he say the lawyers were great lawyers? Oh, wait, there's this line he said. There's this line he said. I'd swear I saw some line where he said, where is it? I'm sorry, I'm trying to find it. I remember him saying a line about the defendant. If any set of attorneys could have achieved victory in these unlikely circumstances, it was the talented defense attorneys here, but the task proved too long. So you're telling me these were like the great attorneys? If any set of attorneys could have achieved victory in these unlikely circumstances, it was these talented defense attorneys. These talented defense attorneys who didn't prove all the stuff you're saying was necessary to prove? That was easy to prove? All right, well, I'm going to say these defense attorneys are... Either the defense attorneys aren't that talented, or the judge is full of crap. Okay, let's get back to where we were. Okay, we're back to this private equity deal. They also made no effort to explain the rationale behind giving Musk 1% per tranche as opposed to some lesser portion of the increased value. And none of these arguments add up to a fair price. So I don't see him yet in this discussion addressing what everybody else has been talking about, which is the plan had effectively zero value when it was approved, because very few people, outside of true believers, most people believe that Tesla was never going to accomplish the goals. So what's the actual value of the plan? I don't know. Did Tesla's lawyers explain that position to the judge? I thought there was expert testimony about the value of the plan at the time, and I don't see the judge addressing that at all. Plaintiffs asked the court to rescind the compensation plan, must rescind plan due to deficiencies. This argument, although elegant in its simplicity, is wrong. No legal authority for why rescission must automatically follow. Generally, a court of equity enjoys broad discretion in fashioning remedies for fiduciary breach, and that general principle applies here. This, I had posted, I don't know, a week or so ago, that I thought the judge was going to overturn the pay plan because he was taking a long time. And the hard part of taking a long time is fashioning remedies for fiduciary breach, that he has to come up with a solution, with a remedy for the plan. He doesn't just say, I'm throwing out the plan. He has to now come up with an answer to what do we do about it. Although rescission does not automatically result from the disclosure deficiencies, it is necessarily and nevertheless an available remedy. Referred to rescission as the preferable but not exclusive remedy for breaches of fiduciary duty, blah, 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 blah. Oh, he is granting rescission. Plaintiff offers no legal authority for why rescission must automatically follow an uninformed vote. Although it does not automatically result from disclosure deficiency, it is nevertheless an available remedy. Delaware Supreme Court has referred to rescission as... Rescission is, I'm throwing out the plan. Okay, without an alternative. As the preferable but not the exclusive remedy for breaches of fiduciary duty. When rescission... Why am I warm? Come on. When rescission can restore the party's position they occupied before the challenge transaction. Rescission then can achieve this result in this case where no third-party interests are implicated and the entire compensation plan sits unexercised and undisturbed. In these circumstances, the preferred remedy is the best one. The plaintiff is entitled to rescission. I mean, it sounds like plaintiff's lawyers weren't very good, didn't make the correct arguments, and he ruled in favor of them anyway. Why am I warm? God damn it. I'm trying to get my air conditioning to work in a new space. I'm sorry. All right. I might get warm. Trial took place over 5 days. The record comprises 1,704 trial exhibits, live testimony from 9 fact and 4 expert witnesses, video testimony from 3 fact witnesses, deposition testimony from 23 fact and 5 expert witnesses, and 200. So there's a lot of stuff here. These are the facts as the court finds them after trial. Okay, I'm gonna skip over details of what he finds about Tesla. I'm gonna skip over the master plan. We know that. Oh, this is important. The master plan was bold, although it might seem difficult to believe now. Back then, the market for electric vehicles was unproven. No, it's not difficult to believe that now. We all understood that. Electric vehicle technology was described as impossible. Even traditional automotive startups faced an incredibly challenging environment in which many failed. In fact, no new domestic car company since Chrysler in the 1920s had achieved financial success. Given the risks, Musk himself viewed the probability of Tesla completing the master plan as extremely unlikely. And as far as I know, they actually haven't completed the master plan. I don't know how to get this air conditioning working. I'm going to die here. To even Musk's surprise, the master plan came to fruition. So I think this is the early master plan getting us to a point where we do this new pay plan. So master plan part due. Reached the final phase of the master plan. Musk began contemplating the next phase of Tesla's development. I'm dying here. Oh, live stream. Could you have made the decision the day after I moved into my new space instead of the day I moved into my new space? Published a new strategic document, Master Plan Part 2, unveiled a long-range compact sedan called the Model 3. So we know about Model 3. No one thought Tesla could mass-produce the Model 3. Musk stated in Part 2, the number of American car companies that haven't gone bankrupt is a total of 2, Ford and Tesla. Tesla had come close to bankruptcy in its early years, and as of March 2017, approximately 20% of Tesla's total outstanding shares were sold short, making it the most shorted company in the U.S. capital markets. At the time, everyone was betting against Tesla and the man at its helm. Okay, so we're getting through some history here, talking about Elon. Prior to the challenge transaction, Musk received 2 compensation plans, one in 2009, one in 2012. Both were equity linked. The first included a performance-based component. The second was entirely performance-based. He goes through the history of the 2 plans. The previous plan, 10 tranches, each offering options representing 0.5% of Tesla's outstanding common stock, would have to achieve both a market cap milestone and an operational milestone. Each tranche required Musk to increase Tesla's market. So in other words, the previous compensation plan was very similar in the sense that you get this much stock, you have to achieve these market cap milestones and operational milestones. Market cap and then there were targets like launching Model X, Model 3, aggregate production. So by the end of 2016, Tesla had achieved 7 of the market cap milestones and 5 of the operational milestones, with another 4 operational milestones considered probable. By March 2017, 7 of the 10 tranches had vested. From the board's perspective, the 2012 grant was successful. Yes. In only 5 years, Tesla's market cap grew by over 15x from 3.2 billion to 53 billion. Yes. So this approach to compensating Elon was working. Tesla saw significant operational growth as well. In the end, the value of Musk's holdings increased from approximately 981 million to 13 billion, meaning that Musk ultimately received approximately 52x the 2012 grant date fair value. This is going to be an important question. What's the grant date fair value of the plan that Elon received? Not what did he ultimately receive, 52x the grant date fair value. To me, the question is, what was the grant date fair value? What was he awarded when the plan was written and approved? Not what did he end up getting when the plan was followed through. 2017, already nearing completion of the 2012. Let me just see. Okay. Prompted discussion that led to the compensation plan at issue in this litigation. By this time, Musk had accumulated 22% beneficial ownership. I think that's including options he hadn't exercised yet. I'm not sure if that's completely the right way of describing it, but I'll assume the judge is getting that right. Okay. At all relevant times, 9-person board. Okay, so here's the decision makers. He's describing who's on the board. Aaron Price is founder and managing partner of DBL Partners, venture firm. Aaron Price and DBL have invested tens of millions of dollars in Musk-controlled companies. Tens of millions. I have friends who have more than that. I think Bruce Burnworth and Dave Leave invested more than tens of millions of dollars in Musk-controlled companies. Aaron Price had been a member of the board since 2007. He was granted options. He exercised less than the court, netted over $200 million. Being a Tesla director had been a real benefit in fundraising for his funds. Aaron Price and the Musk brothers had known each other for over 15 years. Personal and professional relationship with the Musk brothers has had a significant influence on his professional career. Yeah, well, that's going to be true of anybody who was a board member of Tesla when the company grew that much. To argue that Aaron Price's relationship with Musk was weighty in other ways, the plaintiff points to a July 2017 tweet in which Elon professed his love for Musk, but the exchange does not reveal the deep relationship that the plaintiff described. It was an irrelevant joke. Aaron Price is a close friend to Kimball. They had known each other since at least 1999. Aaron Price attended Kimball's wedding in Spain. Also invested. Okay. So he's basically saying it's a pretty clear sign that Aaron Price is too close to be an independent director. I'm not saying he is or he isn't too close to be an independent director. The judge seems to be saying he's not truly independent. Buss joined the board, worked as an accountant, blah, blah, blah. No personal relationship with Musk or other members of the board, has never invested in any of Musk's other businesses. Held assets, not including to earn about $2 million. Okay, so it sounds like he's leaving Buss as an independent director. Denholm, no personal relation with Musk outside her service on the board. Vast majority of her wealth from her compensation as a Tesla director. Is that true? I thought Denholm was successful. See, he doesn't say. Wait, he doesn't say what Denholm did before she joined the compensation committee. Her background is in accounting and telecommunications. Wasn't she like CEO? I thought she had a high-level executive position in a telecoms company. Denholm ultimately received $280 million through sales of some of the options. Described this transaction as life-changing. Received approximately $3 million per year in her non-Tesla position. Even assuming Denholm valued her Tesla compensation at a fraction of its Black-Scholes value, her Tesla compensation far exceeded the compensation she received from other sources. So Black-Scholes value is the value of the options at the time they were awarded, I think. Black-Scholes is a Nobel Prize-winning economics view of options. I did go to Stanford Business School for 3 years. And I did major in mathematical economic analysis, and I did study some finance along the way. Gracias joined the board in 2007. Black-Scholes is something that MBAs learn about, but they don't really understand. PhD students sort of understand it, but we probably don't really either. Gracias joined the board in 2007, the compensation committee in 2009. Okay, Gracias, I think he's going to argue that Gracias is too close to Elon. Managed Valor Ector Partners, deeply operation Tesla. Actively assisted management trying to drive sales. Gracias says that has amassed dynastic or generational wealth from investing in Musk's companies, invested in PayPal in the 90s, began investing in Tesla at Musk's innovation. As of 2017, Gracias was the third largest individual investor in Tesla. Well, that means he's aligned. Yeah, he's friends with Elon, but he's also aligned with Tesla shareholders, right? All of his Tesla shares held in trust for his children. That Tesla stock was worth approximately $1 billion. Valor and Gracias have invested hundreds of millions of dollars in SpaceX, SolarCity, the Boring Company, and Neuralink, all of which significantly increased in value. All told, Gracias and his fund have netted billions of dollars by investing in Musk's companies, many of which were made only with Musk's personal invitation. Gracias has touted endorsements from Musk and marketing his own fund. I'm just going to point out here that, yeah, he's tied to Elon, but if he has $1 billion worth of Tesla stock, doesn't he have the interests of the shareholders in mind? Musk planned to invest in another Valor fund in 2013, but he ultimately did not because Gracias was concerned about conflicting fiduciary duties. Okay. Gracias and Musk are close friends. Gracias once personally loaned $1 million to Musk and could not recall if he charged interest. They meet outside of work as frequently as once a month, spent night at each other's homes. Okay, this is clearly documenting that Gracias' relationship with Musk is too close to be an independent board member. The judge is probably correct about that Gracias is not fully independent. Other directors, Murdoch, professional background in media entertainment. He's probably going to find that Murdoch attended Kimball's wedding, owned 10,000 shares to a family trust, bought these shares on the market before anyone approached him to become a director, now runs a private investment company which invested approximately $50 million in SpaceX. Unclear whether he's going with Murdoch as independent or not. I think it's pretty clear Murdoch is independent. Murdoch is absurdly wealthy outside of Tesla. Johnson Rice joined on Gracias' recommendations. She and Gracias were friends, ran in the same social circles. Sole employer before and during her time at Tesla was a family business, Johnson Publishing Company, which published the magazines Ebony and Jet. Those are prominent magazines. Served another of boards. Received Tesla options as compensation for work as a director. They expired without being exercised. Okay, so we've moved past the directors, and now Musk proposes the terms of a compensation plan. First mention in the record. It's really hard to control this air conditioning, god damn it. Text from Aaron Price to Musk one day after compensation committee certified vesting. Aaron Price asked Musk to discuss a few comp-related issues. They spoke by phone on April 9th. Testified he'd reach out to Musk to see if he was ready to recommit and figure out what was his head in a place that he wanted to recommit over a longer duration to Tesla. Okay, so Aaron, now listen to the way, look at that language. Is Elon ready to recommit to Tesla? Is your head in a place that he wanted to recommit over a longer duration to Tesla? Not, hey, listen, we know you're staying with Tesla. How much money can we give you? Right? Are you willing to commit, or do you want to stay with Tesla? Don't forget, Elon has SpaceX that he's got, effort into. He's got, he may have other ventures. I don't remember when Neuralink and Boring Company started. Musk put forward terms of a new compensation plan during the call. He envisioned a purely performance-based compensation plan structured like the 2012 grant, but with more challenging market cap milestones, and proposed 15 milestones of $50 billion in market capitalization, total possible award of 15% of Tesla's outstanding shares. To put Musk's proposal in perspective, each market cap milestone increase of $50 billion required Tesla to grow in size roughly equal to the market caps of each of Tesla, Ford, and GM as of early 2018. So Tesla would have to grow an amount of market cap equal to that of the most significant domestic car manufacturers to earn a single tranche of compensation. Musk viewed this proposal as really crazy. Draft of the proxy statement would incentivize to management to grow Tesla, one of the most valuable companies in the world, suggesting performance options, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Wait, what's in the footnote here? Footnotes are sometimes important. Okay, so there's some quote here. I'm not sure who this is from. With the 2012 ban, everybody basically, we started off saying we got to double the market cap for you to get anything. Well, now the market cap had grown to 50 billion. It was up to 59 billion by the time they actually approved the plan. But this idea, 50 billion, that's a nice round number. I think at the end of 2017, Ford was worth about 49 billion. I think GM was worth about 58 billion. Every time we'll get another Ford or GM, I think that just kind of resonated. And then down here, those market cap goals, were totally insane. You literally had to create a Ford, GM, or FedEx every 10 months and maintain it, right? So, okay, wow, that's pretty nuts. So the board members felt at the time, and Elon felt at the time, that this plan was insane in terms of the amount that would have to be awarded. Mr. Musk indicated that an award structure would align his incentives with those of stockholders, incentivize him to continue leading the management of the company over the long term. Draft proxy statement is the most reliable and only evidence of the substance of the April 9 discussion. Neither took contemporaneous notes or otherwise memorialized. It is unclear who prepared the draft proxy statement, but Marin was responsible for it. He spoke to Aaron Price within hours of the call and reviewed the draft. Marin was totally beholden to Musk, lending credibility to the accuracy of the draft proxy statement. Should be noted, he was this divorce attorney. Like, people don't always like their divorce attorney, just to be clear. Usually, I would say half people hate their divorce, whether they win or lose. Like, if you lose, you hate your divorce lawyer. If you win, you might not hate your divorce lawyer, but you paid him a lot of money. Marin neither socialized with Musk nor considered himself a friend of Musk when he worked at Tesla, but he owed his career and who had a genuine affection for Musk. Held back tears when asked about his departure from Tesla, describing his most difficult decision he'd made to date. So, that's not his. That shows he loves Tesla. That doesn't necessarily say you can interpret that both ways. So what? People leaving their jobs are often emotional about it. You're leaving a company that's massively changing the world. After speaking to Aaron Price on April 9, Marin enlisted other Tesla employees to help model Musk's proposal. All told, 13 in-house Tesla executives worked on the grant. The key executive, in addition to Marin, was Ahuja, Tesla's CFO. Ahuja recommended one substantive change to the structure, pairing the market cap milestones with operational milestones. Recommended this change for accounting purposes. Relayed the change to Aaron Price, who questioned whether milestones were necessary. Marin explained important accounting reasons for having operational milestones. They began okay, so again, now the CFO chips in and says we need to change the plan from what Elon wanted. And Elon went along with it. And those are pretty substantial changes. And we see this, by the way, with Lucid Motors. Lucid Motors didn't require significant operational milestones for Peter Rawlinson to get like $300 million. I wonder if any shareholders are going to sue Lucid over Rawlinson's compensation plan. There's an interesting question. I don't know that the judge is politically motivated. I don't know that I would see political motivation in this. I don't know that political motivation matters. I mean, here's we haven't gotten to the critical question yet. What was the value of the plan when it was awarded? Because there's a lot of evidence here that I'm seeing. The judge is saying that the evidence isn't there. I'm seeing a lot of evidence that this plan was unlikely to succeed. So the value of the plan would be very low at the time it's awarded. Musk states that he's committed to Tesla for life. Little progress was made on Musk's new compensation plan. An analyst asked about Musk's view of staying actively in place with Tesla long in the future. Musk responded he should not be CEO forever. He further indicated he was going to reevaluate his position after Tesla achieved volume production of the Model 3. The plaintiff argues that Musk's statement about not being CEO was intended to pressure Tesla in negotiations over Musk's compensation plan, but the record does not support that conclusion. Musk clarified his statement later in the May 3 earnings call, saying, "Well, maybe I wasn't clear. I intend to be actively involved with Tesla for the rest of my life. Hopefully stopping before I get too old or too crazy, I don't know. But essentially, for as long as I can positively contribute to Tesla, I intend to have a significant involvement with Tesla." That doesn't mean he intends to be CEO. Stating unequivocally he would have remained at Tesla even if stockholders had rejected a new compensation plan because he was heavily invested in Tesla, both financially and emotionally, and viewed Tesla as part of his family. Trial witnesses similarly testified he never heard Musk say that he plans to quit Tesla. Corroborating that fact is any lack of succession plans during the relevant period. That is, before 2021, neither Musk nor Tesla had identified a potential successor for the role of Tesla CEO. The first and forgettable board discussion. Okay, so throwing in forgettable here is the judge tipping his hand that he has a strong opinion about this board discussion. By June 2017, had met all 10 market cap milestones for the 2012 grant, only 3 tranches left to achieve. Board discussed the prospect of a new compensation plan. Musk chaired the meeting. The conversation was brief and apparently forgettable. During that meeting, Aaron Price updated the board, stated plans were underway to design the next compensation program. Minutes of that meeting are 3 pages long, and the discussion of a new compensation plan. So, okay, so the first meeting, I think the point here is the judge is heading towards a conclusion that the board didn't discuss the plan enough. That's the reason for this inclusion is, okay, this discussion was not meaningful, and therefore the board did not do significant evaluation. And Denholm said she doesn't remember discussing it. Now, in June of 2017, we would like to discuss Elon's next stock grant. This sort of outreach from Marin was common during the process. Although he was counsel to Tesla, he would reach out and prompt action by the compensation committee to benefit Musk. A few days prior, now keep in mind, Marin is not on the board. Marin's team had prepared an aggressive timeline for approving a compensation plan, scheduled the compensation committee and board to approve the plan by July 17th or July 24th at the latest. The initial June 15 plan contemplated only 2 compensation committee meetings prior to final approval, and it allotted the committee just over a month to do its job. A later June 26th version was even more rushed, proposing only 1 compensation committee meeting. The timeline reflected a reckless approach to a fiduciary process, given the compensation committee had not yet discussed any substantive terms nor met concerning the grant. Despite the breakneck speed contemplated by the timeline, reported to counsel that Aaron Price was aligned on the plan and timing. Well, but Aaron Price was the one who'd already discussed the plan. It was the rest of the board that wasn't aware of it. After Musk asked to discuss this compensation plan, the team was supercharged. Initial calls with 5 potential compensation consultants, selected 3 from Marin and Aaron Price to interview. The consultants reformed to Musk's initial proposal and the aggressive timeline. Okay, the first compensation committee discussion. Discussed Musk's compensation plan on June 2017, June 23. Now, the committee formally resolved to retain Wilson, Sonsini, and Compensi as legal advisor and compensation consultant. A few days later, retained John Berg at Aon Hewitt Radford to value the 2018 grant in light of the market-based milestones and to advise on the accounting treatment of the 2018 grant in light of the performance-based milestones. During the meeting, Aaron Price stated the compensation committee's aim was to create a new compensation plan similar to the 2012 grant, set out goals for the compensation plan in broad scopes. The minutes of the meeting described that discussion as follows. The committee discussed how Musk had been and would likely remain a key driver of the company's success and its prospects for growth, and that accordingly it would be in Tesla's interest and in the interest of its stockholders to structure a compensation package that would keep Mr. Musk as the company's fully engaged CEO. Unlike most other CEOs, Musk manages multiple successful large companies, discussed the importance of keeping Mr. Musk focused and deeply involved in the company's business, and the corresponding need to formulate a compensation package that would best ensure Mr. Musk focuses his innovation strategy and leadership on the company and its mission. This is an important detail. Elon runs SpaceX, which is now over $150 billion company. He's got other companies that he runs. I assume at this point, I don't remember when Neuralink and Boring Company started, but he started those companies. He has other interests. Yes, he's committed to Tesla, but he's got other things. It's not just whether he stays with Tesla. It's how much of his time he devotes to Tesla. It's whether he makes Tesla a priority or whether he makes other companies a greater priority. Committee was not presented with any proposed terms for a compensation plan, did not consider it anyway. This was the case even though behind the scenes, Aaron Price and Musk had discussed in Musk's initial proposal, which Musk's team had already modeled. Yeah, but I think the consultants hadn't reviewed the plan yet, so what would be the point of presenting it to the compensation committee? Although the committee had no idea what the terms of the plan might be, they were told to be prepared to approve it in July. Brown thought the timeline was unwise. Brown called Aaron Price to ask for more time to work on the matter. Aaron Price responded, "This is the timeline we're working with." Marin's team would repeat that message. "We're running up against a short down with make sure this is moving. Move it full tilt." Other than Brown, there's no evidence anyone questioned the timeline. Aaron Price formed a working group. Marin, 2 in-house attorneys reported to him, Chang and Phillips, Ahuja, Brown, Berg, and attorneys from Wilson, Sonsini. Aaron Price and Gracias were in the working group, but the compensation committee decided that the 2 members with less extensive ties to Musk, Denholm and Buss, were optional attendees. I thought that they weren't... Okay, the working group first met on June 30th. Phillips proposed the agenda. Brown prepared a slide deck with high-level overview of the suggested terms. few slides summarizing the 2012 grant, a slide titled Preliminary Concept reflecting the 15 tranche, and 3 slides titled Key Program Terms, Alternatives and Considerations, which identify terms of the compensation plan under the title Preliminary Alternative and considerations relevant to each term under the term title. The presentation identified the following question for discussion. Will both operational and company valuation goals be used? I'm just reading through here. The presentation was a vehicle for getting the compensation committee members up to speed on the work done behind the scenes prior to that time. Working group has stood poised to move forward. Chang emailed members of the group about developing operational milestones. Each market cap milestone would also require an increase of $15 billion in GAAP revenue. Tesla should expect to achieve milestone roughly once every 12 to 15 months over the next 3 years. Musk decelerates the process. Working group met again on July 6th, the day before the next compensation committee. After this meeting, Marin informed Chang, we're now going on a slower track with the CEO grant. We're now looking to issue it in August or September instead of within the next couple of weeks. So first he's saying that the committee was rushed, and now it's slowed down. It was way too complex to do what was originally described as a preliminary timeline, but did not recall additional details. The reality is that Marin answered to and spoke for Musk in this context. So he's making a conclusion here that Marin, who's the attorney for Tesla, but also Elon's divorce attorney, and I can understand that doesn't seem very independent. That doesn't mean he's not a good attorney, and I'm not sure why a divorce attorney is in this role. Okay. Is he a good lawyer? Does he, Elon's attitude isn't, Elon's attitude is this person good at his work? Right? Does this person work hard? Does this person have exceptional ability? That's how Elon tends to decide these things. Who do I hire? Somebody who has exceptional ability. If he felt that the divorce attorney had exceptional ability, he would put him in a different slot. And he's claiming that Marin answered to and spoke for Musk in this. And that's a statement. It was Musk who either asked to slow things down or stop pushing to get them done so quickly. This is a conclusion. I don't see where he says Musk, this paragraph right here, like, I'm not saying he's wrong. All I'm saying is all of a sudden it was slowed down. It's unclear why the process was slowed down. It's unclear. I don't know why the judge think it's bad that the process slowed down. The judge seemed to be saying it was bad that the process was accelerated. So now the process is slowed down. He's claiming that Musk slowed the process down, and I don't see him making any reference to any evidence that Musk is the one who pushed it to slow down. It's entirely possible the CEO said, no, this is too, because the CEO was pushing, the CFO, Ahuja, Deepak, I think his name is, wanted these other milestones, operational milestones included. Maybe Deepak is the one who slowed it down. It was Musk who either asked to slow things down or stop pushing to get them done so quickly. Musk denied aspects of this finding, denying that he was pushing for the grant to happen quickly and stating he was generally erring on the side of glowing slowly, did not recall the exact reason why the process slowed down in early July, but his recollection of relevance was generally... So the judge is concluding that Musk is controlling this when there's zero evidence. This is a spot where if you're looking for bias of the judge, this is a spot where you see bias of the judge. The judge is concluding that Elon is the one who's controlling the pace of the process with zero evidence that Musk controlled the pace of the process. And I would say, looking at this, Deepak Ahuja, the CFO, said, hey, we need operational milestones to make this sensible. We can't just do this on market cap alone. It's entirely conceivable that Deepak, the CFO, said, hey, you're going too fast. You got to slow this down. It's entirely possible that Marin on his own said, I'm looking at this. It's my legal conclusion that this is moving too fast. We need to slow this down. We don't know. And neither does the judge, apparently, and the judge forms an opinion. So this, again, when you're looking... Now, when I say bias, I don't mean political bias, because apparently some people are saying there's political bias. I'm saying, hey, that they want you to use she because the judge is a woman. Oh, I'm sorry. The woman... Sorry. I didn't know the judge is a woman. Kathleen McCormick. Okay. My bias. I assumed the judge was a man. I was wrong. But the fact is that the judge makes a decision that, look right here, Musk denied aspects of this finding. But where's the evidence? Musk said that's not true. Where's the evidence that is this true? The judge is just pulling this out of the air. all we have is we don't know why it was postponed. How do we know this is Elon? Maybe this is going to come up later. Maybe there's going to be evidence of this later, but I think this is an example of the judge being biased against Elon. I'm not saying there's a political bias. I'm saying the judge is biased. The judge has decided, now this is one of the things, my opinion about judges. Judges decide on a result, and then some judges follow a process of saying, what's the process I should follow to come to a decision? Some judges decide a result, and then they figure out, how do I get there? And this is an example of a judge saying, okay, I want to invalidate this pay plan, and here's a fact I need to find that's going to help me get there. I need to find that Elon controlled this process, so let me assume that Elon controlled the process here, even though I don't have any facts to support it. My opinion on what I'm reading from what the judge said. The first compensation committee discussion of the substantive terms. Agenda was revised given the new timeline. Short presentation, read the CEO grant from Brown. This is the first meeting where the committee would be presented with terms of a compensation plan. In addition to the $50 billion market cap milestones that Musk has proposed, covered alternatives, a flat $25 billion increase, or graduated milestones beginning at $10 billion, increasing to $50 billion. These different market cap approaches corresponded to different award sizes, ranging from 7.5% of total outstanding shares to Musk's proposed 15%. Although the presentation identified alternatives to Musk's proposal, the presentation included a valuation only for Musk's proposal. Presentation was therefore biased toward Musk's proposal, although this was the first meeting in which the committee had considered any terms. I don't know if we have it doesn't state what the valuation was, by the way. Nowhere has it stated what the valuation was. But, it seems pretty obvious if the proposals range from 7.5% of total outstanding shares to Musk's proposed 15%, I don't know how much of a genius you have to be to figure out it's half. 7.5% is half of 15%. I don't know if you need an expert witness to explain that 7.5% is half of 15%. In addition to the market cap and operational mile. Now, maybe somebody could have said, hey, let's figure out what's the value here. In addition to market cap and operational milestones, presentation identified other potential grant features, including the following: clawback provision. Tesla's executive officers are subject to clawback policy. Presentation contained the following question: is the current clawback provision sufficient protection for the company? No evidence that the committee discussed this question or ever demanded a more protective clawback provision. The final version of the grant included a clawback provision based on the guidelines. Repayment of certain incentives if there's a restatement of our financial statements. So, okay, this isn't terribly significant, but there's a provision in here to protect Tesla against a restatement of financial statements that would claw back money from Elon. An M&A adjustment, which is a provision that accounts for impact of financing or acquisitions on the market cap milestones. These provisions are standard. A hold period, which was a period post-exercise during which Musk would be prohibited from selling his stock. Post-exercise hold periods decrease the grant accounting value of the stock as follows: 2 year minus 15%, 3 years minus 18%, and 5 years minus 22%. Benchmarking analyses were on the advisors' minds. Prior to the first working group meeting, he suggested benchmarking. Largest CEO pay packages in 2016, summaries of other executive compensation plans, SolarCity, Nike, Avago Technologies, and Apple. Radford's $3.1 billion valuation of a grant featuring $50 billion market capitalization milestones and awarding 15% of total outstanding shares. I think I'm guessing Radford is one of the experts they hired. And Radford's additional preliminary models based on different market cap approaches, but the appendix data does not constitute a traditional benchmarking study, and it is unclear whether the committee discussed this information or the risks associated with such grant in any event. Aaron, Price, and Marin were to contact Tesla's largest institutional stockholders to discuss the new compensation plan, worked with outside counsel to prepare talking points to use during the calls. They ultimately spoke to 15 stockholders between July 7, 2017 and August 1, 2017. Marin's subordinates joined these calls and took notes. Now notice, these calls took time. So it may, like, the idea that Musk slowed the discussion seems dubious it seems like the plan was slowed because they had to talk to institutional stockholders. Someone decided, hey, we need to talk to our largest institutional stockholders before we go forward this plan. And that obviously took longer than the original timeline. And they have a script. Aaron Price introduces himself, and Marin identifies his objectives, sing Musk's praises, remind the stockholders, explain their considering new compensation structure, blah, blah, blah. Stockholders to whom Aaron Price and Marin spoke were pleased with the 2012 plan's results and supported a similar approach for new compensation plan. Stockholders also provided suggestions for the new compensation plan that the board ultimately adopted. It's difficult to credit the defendant's narrative for two reasons. First, the script reads like a loaded questionnaire intended to solicit positive feedback and not a method for gaining objective stockholder perspectives. Second, what the stockholders said in response to these inquiries is hearsay and untested by the adversarial process, including cross-examination. Okay, so this is an important thing to understand. Hearsay. That's an out-of-court statement offered to prove the truth of the matter asserted. So this is not hearsay. Okay, this is incorrect. What the stockholders said in response to these inquiries is hearsay. It's not that what the stockholders said is proving facts outside the evidence. It's what the stockholders wanted. If the stockholders said, this is what we want, right? It's evidence of what they wanted, not evidence of some outside fact. It's not like you asked the stockholders, hey, who shot the witness? Who shot the victim? Right? And now you've got a statement from some stockholder saying, oh, John shot the victim. Well, you can't cross-examine the out-of-court statement. But here, there's an exception. I don't even know if this qualifies as an exception to the hearsay rule. This is not offered to prove the truth of the matter asserted. It's not offered to prove the truth of what the stockholders said. It's offered to show what they wanted. That's different. This is not hearsay. Okay, so finding that this is hearsay, my opinion, this is a mistake. This is a legal mistake. Judge McCormick, she made a mistake by saying that this is hearsay. And if somebody wanted to bring in the stockholders as witnesses and ask them questions, the plaintiffs could have summoned this. If this was an important issue, the plaintiffs could have brought the institutional stockholders in and said, did you have conversations about this? What were your thoughts on this? Blah, 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 blah. It is subject to process. You could have brought them in for depositions. Okay, the working group develops operational milestones. One of the objectives, operational metrics, EBITDA, operating income, free cash flow, blah, blah, blah. Ahuja had developed the strategic milestones for the 2012 grant, and he took responsibility. Ahuja is the CFO, Deepak Ahuja. I don't know if I'm pronouncing Ahuja right. Sent Ahuja. By the way, we're only on page 7. We're on page 7 of 201 here. Is that right? Are we only on page 7? This can't be right. No, we're on page 54. Okay, we're on page 54. I'm sorry. I almost panicked. Ahuja. So Berg sent Ahuja and other members of the working group an analysis of the historic market cap to revenue ratio of large U.S. companies. Use this data to propose starting with the 6.5x revenue to market cap milestone, which could be used to determine the initial revenue milestones, $7.5 billion additional revenue for each $50 billion in market cap. The revenue milestones then declined to 4x for the final tranches. Suggested 4 EBITDA milestones. There's no evidence here that Elon is driving Ahuja to choose these milestones. The idea that Elon is controlling this process, it appears that Deepak is suggesting these milestones. So far, I haven't seen any indication that Musk is controlling Deepak. Projected that Tesla should be able to get to $12 billion EBITDA over the next 4 to 5 years, depending on volumes and margin assumptions. As to the hold period, the presentation noted the guidelines required a 6-month post-vesting hold period. Creative options they can employ to solve for getting a bigger discount on the publicly reported grant date fair value. Provided holding periods ranging from 1 to 10 years and types of options with corresponding discounts. Update for the full board excluding Musk and Kimball on the structure under discussion. Marin sent an email to the full board summarizing the process today and asking everyone to attend upcoming compensation committee meetings. Musk hits the brakes. Late July 2017 proved a busy time for Tesla, which delivered the first Model 3 on July 29. This triggered the 8th milestone in Musk's 2012 grant. It also prompted Musk to once again reset the compensation committee's timelines. In Marin's views, given the struggles with the Model 3 launch, Musk desired to extend the timeline either because he was unsure whether to commit to Tesla, which Musk denied, or simply did not want to focus on compensation during a busy time. Whatever the reason, Musk hit the brakes in the process. 2 days before the planned meeting, Musk sent Marin a brief email asking to put the discussion of his compensation on hold for a few weeks. Marin said he would rather keep cranking on it because there's a fair amount to it that we've been working out with the board and there's lead time involved. Musk agreed to let Marin proceed, saying he just wanted to make sure Tesla's interest comes first. The added comp is just so I can put as much as possible towards minimizing existential risk by putting the money towards Mars if I'm successful and leading Tesla to be one of the world's most valuable companies. This is kind of crazy, but it is true. Okay, so by the way, I have said for the longest time that he wants to put the money towards Mars, that who's the customer for the Mars mission? Elon is the customer. If Elon becomes the world's first trillionaire, Elon is the one who can fund the Mars mission. Who's the customer for Mars? I've said Elon's the customer for Mars. Here's Elon apparently saying that. But again, look at what happens here. He says Musk hits the brakes. The judge, she says Musk hits the brakes. And what actually happens? Marin says, no, I want to keep cranking on it. And Musk says he agreed to let Marin proceed. So Musk didn't hit the brakes. Musk asked to hit the brakes. Marin said no, and Musk said okay. So how is Musk controlling this process? This is ridiculous. The process goes off course. Musk remained hyper-focused on Model 3 production, which was proving slow and painful. As Musk described the trial, the sheer amount of pain required to achieve that goal, there's no words to express. This aspect of Musk's testimony was totally credible. Okay, so apparently there's one moment in Elon's testimony where Judge McCormick said Elon was believable. Which, by the way, this is an indication, again, this is a bias against Musk. She does not find Musk to be credible otherwise. This was credible, and therefore there are times when Elon was not credible. Right? What is she saying? I did not believe Elon at other times. And there's a little bit more detail here from the email from Musk describing the slow progress as extremely alarming, demanding production of 1,000 Model 3 vehicles in the final week of September, stating, come hell or high water, that 1,000 unit number is going to fucking happen. If I have to help build them myself, I'm going to be a draconian because I have to be, and warning that Tesla's life is at stake. Now, notice, she doesn't mention in the process that Tesla's life was actually at stake, that Tesla was at risk of bankruptcy. She doesn't mention that. Although Musk will lead to allow Marin to keep cranking, progress on Musk's compensation plan is slowed to a halt. There was some discussion of Musk's compensation plan, no action. Highlights of this interregnum are discussed in brief below. Telephonic meeting on August 1. Is additional compensation for the CEO required given his current ownership and potential appreciation with company performance? But this is the first time this key question had been posed. Did Musk require additional compensation? The most curious thing about this question is there's no evidence that any director deliberated over it. It did not appear in any other board or committee materials. Okay, so this hints at the judge saying a founder who owns a large percentage of the company doesn't deserve additional compensation. Right? That's the conclusion. A founder who owns a substantial share of the company doesn't deserve additional compensation. He's already motivated. Next event of interest occurred on September 8th when Aaron Price and Denholm spoke to Musk to discuss his compensation plan. Once again, the most notable aspect of this conversation concerns a question that went undiscussed. The agenda for the September 8th call identified the following topics for discussion. Should some type of commitment be included as part of comp structure? Trial testimony revealed that no one raised this issue with Musk. Aaron Price recalled discussing Musk's dedication to Tesla generally, and Marin's summary of the call reflects that the participants discussed the opportunity cost of Musk devoting time to Tesla. Although Musk didn't have a good recollection of the September 8th call, he was confident they did not discuss a time or attention commitment. Musk said that would be silly. Presentation also reflected Musk's proposed 15 trans structure. I believe it ended up being a 12 trans structure, so there was a change there. Okay. Board met on September 19th, but meeting was not terribly interesting. Reported on the committee's progress. Gave a presentation covering much of the same ground as the August 1 presentation. Valued the 15% market cap option at a $2 to $3 billion grant date fair value. Okay, this is an important detail. We'll see if this gets coverage, whether the judge pays attention to this. Valued the 15% market cap option at a $2 to $3 billion grant date fair value. So this is saying at the date we award this, we're giving Elon something worth $2 to $3 billion. According to the meeting minutes, the board expects his general support for the overall structure of the grant. Now we have a footnote 304. That's just, okay, there's nothing there. That's just indicating where it is in the transcript. Board favored a long-term stock option grant with performance-based vesting. Board noted Musk was driven by large goals and viewed the discussed targets as achievable given the potential of the company and believed Musk would as well. Before this period of activity, the only milestones to discuss were the $50 billion market cap milestones. Operational milestones remain to be determined, but Ahuja gave them some thought. Working group meeting. Discussions focused on adjusted EBITDA. It's unclear who made the decision to focus on that metric. Why does that matter? Ahuja asked one of his employees for operational metrics that will line up with the 15 increments. Ahuja envisioned 15 adjusted EBITDA milestones ranging from $2 billion to $25 billion, requested comparisons. After pulling the data, members of Ahuja's team responded they didn't see immediate parallels to where we are. More information. Reached out to his team for help developing 10 adjusted EBITDA metrics that ended revenue about $150 billion and market cap about $800 billion, using percent and multiples which start high and progressively become lower. Thinking is we will develop EBITDA-based operational metrics rather than revenue-based. It is unclear who dictated that thinking at that time. A Tesla employee responding to who provided 10. Okay. Well, I don't know why it's unclear. I think it's obvious that Deepak is doing his own analysis of what's appropriate, which is his fucking job. Like, why? The problem is that in revenue, if you rely on revenue alone and you're not profitable, that's not meaningful. And EBITDA is an appropriate method. I think it's James Stevenson who explained this to me, that EBITDA, maybe it was Dave Lee, who explained that when you have a startup company, EBITDA is a better measure. And he wasn't referring to I don't think he was referring to the award structure. He was referring to when you're looking at a company, evaluating a company, and a startup phase, you want to look at EBITDA. Tesla employee responded, 10 EBITDA milestones. Employee found would necessitate a bit multiple well above that of Amazon, Cap, Apple, or Google. So that's saying the profit would have to be substantially higher. By the end of October, production difficulties seem to be easing. Production rate will soon enter the steep portion of the manufacturing S-curve, which will create nonlinear production growth. With Tesla's production stabilizing, Musk turned his attention back to his compensation plan. Lowers his ask. Stated he wanted to move forward. He wanted to reduce something less than 15% of total outstanding shares. It's unclear why Musk decided to lower his ask. It's possible he's trying to single-handedly calibrate the compensation package to terms that are more reasonable. Later that morning, he told Marin, I would like to take board action as soon as possible, feel comfortable, then would go to the shareholders. I think the amount should be reduced to a 10% increment in my Tesla ownership. If I can get us to a $550 billion valuation, but that should be a fully diluted 10%, factoring in that it dilutes me too. So if it was awarded to me and now and I own probably 20% fully diluted, then I would have 30%. Of course, there will be future dilution due to employee grants and equity raises, so probably this is more like 25% or more or so in 10 years when there's some chance of being fully awarded. The implication of Musk's proposal use a 10% fully diluted figure at 1% tranches that he now sought a 10 tranche structure. Moments later, Musk sent Marin another email. Given this will all go to causes that lead aspirationally maximize the probability of a good future for humanity. Plus, all Tesla shareholders will be super happy. I think this will be received well. It should come across as an ultra bullish view of the future, given this comp package is worth nothing if all I do is almost double Tesla's market cap. So in other words, if Elon almost doubles Tesla's market cap from where it is at this point, he gets nothing. Right? And we've got the Gordon Johnsons of the world saying, Tesla's a busted growth story. This is never going to happen. Related his proposal, Chang sent Aaron Price a list of talking points. The numbers we're talking about, how are we doing? How are we doing here? I can't tell how many people are watching. All right, let's go back. Remember we were talking about lower than before, 10 tranches to 550 billion. Meanwhile, Jurvetson began a leave of absence. At this time, he'd been a managing director. This became a PR problem for Tesla. Returned to the board April 2019, but left again September 2020. Musk emailed Marin again, asking to pause for a week or two on his compensation plan, as it would be a terrible timing. Did not recall the nature of the problem. Musk's November 9 proposal, the unintended consequence of raising Musk's demand. According to Chang, Musk's demand to increase his current percentage of fully diluted shares by 10 percentage points would require an award of nearly 30 million shares, which equaled approximately 17% of total outstanding shares. Turned out to be larger than his initial proposal, contrary to his desire for a reduced amount. Marin sent Chang's calculations. Musk responded on December 1, telling Marin, that is more than I intended. Let's go with 10% of the current FDS number, so 20.915 million. Fully diluted share total. So Marin pushes back. Marin and Chang push back and say, Elon, no, that's too much. And Elon says, okay. And this is the moment where Elon says, I guess I was negotiating against myself. I don't understand why that's a big deal. Musk is negotiating. In other words, the board was probably ready to approve the larger number, and Elon negotiated it down. And Elon asked to reduce it, agreed to reduce it, lowered it. The parties crammed a lot of work into a few days in December. But that's not true. That's not true. If you read the facts, they're pushing back against Elon's number, and Elon agrees to lower it. So the conclusion that Elon made a comment about it, sort of half joking, does not change the fact that the facts that you laid out are Marin and Chang pushed back against Elon, saying that's too much. We need to go with a lesser number, and Elon agreed to a lesser number. Parties crammed a lot of work into a few days in December. Renewed sense of urgency. Approved a 12-tranche grant structure and a set of operational milestones. Musk appeared prepared to accept the transaction, which Minister described at the lower end of the previously contemplated range of 12% of total outstanding shares. Okay. 12%, 12-tranche structure. All pre-November 19 discussions into between 15 tranches. Then there was 10 tranches. Compensation Committee approved a 12-tranche structure, which was presented to the board 2 days later. Parties discussed the evolution. Was intended to counter Musk's offer for a fully diluted 10% and its correlated 10-tranche structure. 12% of total outstanding shares equals approximately 10% fully diluted, making it seem like there was no real upside using the 12% figure. Adding 2 more tranches on top of Musk's suggested 10 tranches required a Tesla to hit the $50 billion market capitalization 2 more times to generate an additional $100 billion in market cap. So it made it harder for Musk to achieve the maximum payout of the grant. Testified the shift from fully diluted total outstanding shares was one of 2 areas where the board pushed significantly and I conceded. This testimony finds no support in the contemporaneous record. Although there are benefits of a 12-tranche structure to minority shareholders, the move to 12% and 12 tranches was driven by the board's preference to base the grant on total outstanding shares rather than fully diluted shares. It makes it harder for Elon to achieve the goals. It makes it harder for Elon to get what he's looking for. Again, this strikes me as a judge who's decided on a result before doing the analysis. This is very clear that the board is pushing back. This is the board changing the requirements, making it harder for Elon to get what he wants. An $100 billion increase in market cap to get the full outcome. This issue first arose during the November 16 board meeting. There's this focus on fully diluted shares versus total outstanding shares. Like, who cares? Board viewed total outstanding shares as a simpler metric and used it with, okay. How the special meeting discussed the grant. They went for simplicity of 10. 10 means the end goal is smaller. 12 tranches of 1% each. The board agreed to the size demanded by Musk, but preferred to base it on total outstanding shares consistent with their discussion. So they went against Elon and went with total outstanding shares instead of fully diluted shares. Completed size of the grant is here. Grant size will be 20.1 million shares, which is less than I think Elon had proposed. 12% of Total outstanding shares, 9.8% of fully diluted shares. Emailed Chang and Tesla's corporate controller. Aaron Price told the board Musk was prepared to accept this grant size. There's no discussion in any minutes or notes of the November 16th, blah, 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 that the board desired 12 tranches because it's better for the minority shareholders. To the contrary, the only explanation in the record for the 12 tranche structures, the board preferred to measure the grant by total outstanding shares for simplicity's sake. No evidence that the board pushed for the 12%, 12 tranche structure. Okay, so there's this point about minority stockholders. The 12 tranche structure makes it harder for Elon to achieve his goals, and it means that the shareholders have to get an extra $100 billion in market cap. That's obviously better for minority shareholders if the market cap setting is 100 billion higher. What difference does it make if they said this is good for the minority stockholders? This is good for all the stockholders. There's no evidence that the board pushed for the 12%, 12 tranche structure. Musk did not recall the board pushing or Musk conceding anything. He testified that although the size of the overall plan was one of the features that was different than I think were initially thought of by Elon, I don't want to say that it was unnecessarily over his objection. Board discussed the structure of the operational milestones, came to a consensus to use both sales and profits metrics, directed the compensation committee and management to develop operational milestones, took up the mantle, used a comparatively low 10% EBITDA revenue margin, and refined the model to 3 options for 6, 8, or 12 of each of revenue and adjusted EBITDA milestones. Now there's this, why is 10% EBITDA over revenue margin low? Low compared to what? Compared to an auto company? Compared to a tech company? 360. It's not clear why this is relatively low from the opinion. By December 10, refined the model 3 options for 6, 8, or 12 of each revenue. All okay. Sought to develop achievable operational milestones and analyze information regarding adjusted EBITDA revenue ratios of certain peers. Amazon 8%, Apple 34%, and Google 42%. Yeah, well, okay. Comparatively low to Apple and Google. They're not even trying to compare to car companies. Like, what is it for car companies? And Amazon, 8%, this is higher than Amazon. Ultimately, it's the same as Amazon. He started the $50 billion market cap milestone, backed into revenue and EBITDA targets, explained that the operational market cap milestones have to be somewhat aligned. It has to make sense to be able to achieve around the same time or what you think is the same time. And there's a key point here, which is if you achieve the market cap without achieving the revenue and the EBITDA, then you're getting compensated for not really achieving the operational goals. So why are these goals unreasonable? Because they're less than Apple and Google? And I don't see any analysis by the judge of that. It's just sort of throwing it out there. Again, we're only on what page are we on? We're only on page 74. Maybe the judge lays it out later. During the December 12th meeting, board also reviewed Tesla's then current operating plan and projections. The one-year projections underlying the operating plan forecasted $27.4 billion in total revenue and $4.3 billion in adjusted EBITDA by late 2018, and thus it predicted achievement of 3 milestones in 2018 alone. The 3-year long-run projections underlying that plan reflected that by 2019 and 2020, Tesla would achieve 7 and 11 operational milestones respectively. This is like goals. This is what they're trying to achieve. Lots of companies say this is what we're going for. That doesn't mean they actually were assured of achieving these goals. The point is to achieve the goals. I guarantee you Gordon Johnson at the time was saying they were not going to achieve them, and all sorts of Wall Streeters are saying they're not going to achieve them. The day after the December 12 board meeting, Chang provided Berg and Brown the near final term sheet. Leadership requirement reflected agreement on a leadership requirement conditioning vesting under the grant on Musk being CEO or executive chairman, chief product officer. 2012 condition vesting on remaining CEO. The board relaxed its request to allow vesting if Musk was not CEO, but executive chairman. This seems like trivial details. Gracias explained the more lenient leadership requirement reflected the board's belief that Musk's most valuable function was the chief product officer, not as CEO. There's no evidence the board ever discussed or negotiated this with Musk. Yeah, but there's voices out there who wanted Elon to appoint a CEO. He's chief product officer at X. It doesn't mean he's not very involved with the company. It doesn't mean he's not adding value. CEO is just a title. It doesn't mean you're the most important person in the company. And Elon has made fun of the CEO title, right? He's now he's not even CEO. What is he? No, he's not Chief Twit. That's X. December 13 term sheet. Techno King, isn't he Techno King? December 13 term sheet reflected board's intent to include an M&A adjustment in the grant. Excluded from the market cap milestone acquisitions with a purchase price of over $1 billion, and the revenue and EBITDA milestones excluded amounts attributable to acquisitions providing more than $500 million or $100 million of each respectively. Described this as a negotiated term that Musk wanted the M&A adjustments just to apply to a single milestone at the point of M&A, but we ultimately got those adjustments to. So again, the board is disagreeing with Elon and getting what they want. Musk would eventually come around to the M&A adjustment as proposed by the board. So is Musk controlling this transaction or not? Musk came around and agreed to it, and Marin is disagreeing with Elon, and Ahuja is, you have this situation where Musk says what he wants, and then Marin says, no, we're going to do this, and Ahuja says, no, we're going to do this, and Musk is going along with it. So how is Musk controlling this transaction? After speaking to Deepak, proposed a threshold that would exclude acquisition-based market cap growth amounting to lesser of 5% market cap. Musk countered again against himself with a threshold of lower than 2%. I don't think we'll be making big acquisitions. There's no chance I will game the economics here, so I'm fine with limits that prevent that. He's agreeing to limits they propose and then saying, no, make it tighter on me. After discussing the issue, all agreed the following exclusion triggers. Hold period. Duration of the hold period was an open issue. Aaron Price described as a negotiated term. Similarly testified the board pushed for this term, which was his biggest concern, which means he would either need to run the company for another 5 years after the stock vested, or he would need to find someone who would run the company well enough to not cause the valuation to subsequently decline significantly. A lot can happen in 5 years. So it looks like the board insisted on a 5-year hold and it went in, even though Elon didn't want it. Again, is Elon controlling this or not? On December 22, Berg provided a valuation letter based on the December 13 term sheet. Berg used Monte Carlo simulations to estimate the probability of hitting the market cap milestones, which is generally accepted statistical technique. First market cap call described as 100 billion would occur 45% of the time, after which the likelihood of achieving substantive milestones rapidly declined to below 10% from milestone 6 onward. Monte Carlo evaluation did not account for the probability of hitting operational milestones, nor did it incorporate Tesla's internal projections. Based on these estimates, he reached an initial grant date fair value for the 2018 grant of $2.6 billion, then applied a 10.52% illiquidity discount based on the 5-year hold period, arriving at a final value of $2.4 billion. They continue to refine his valuation the following weeks by tweaking assumptions, including the holding period and dilution rate. Slightly higher final valuation of $2.6 billion. Still higher final valuation of $2.6 billion, resulting from intervening increases the total number of shares, a higher stock price, and slight changes to other assumptions. Board approves the grant. Musk and Kimball recuse themselves. Jurvetson was on leave. The other 6 directors, Aaron Price, Denholm, Gracias, Buss, Murdoch, and Johnson Rice, unanimously approved the grant. Final form divided into 12 vesting tranches. We already know the details. Okay. Each completed chance earns Musk's options to purchase 1% of Tesla's common stock outstanding before a 5-for-1 stock split in 2020, blah, blah, blah. Strike price of these options was $350, the closing price of Tesla's common stock as of January 19, 2019. Adjusting for 2 stock splits, the strike price was $23 as of today's share value. Also included clawback provision, leadership requirement, M&A adjustment, and 5-year hold period. Grant expired after 10 years. Stockholders approved the grant. Board approval is not the finish line because the board conditioned the 2018 grant on approval. So I think this is where we're going to get into a big issue, the proxy statement. Announced the 2018 grant to the public, filed a preliminary proxy statement, filed this definitive proxy statement on February 8th, which notified stockholders of a vote to approve the 2018 grant.
included statements at issue in this litigation to describe all compensation committee members as independent directors, despite Gracias's close relationship with Musk. Okay, so the claim is that the compensation committee members were not all independent because Gracias was close with Musk. But if you look at what happened here, there's an important detail. If you go through the description, the judge's description of everything that happened along the way, Gracias did not play a significant role in designing the compensation package. It was Marin, it was Aaron Price, and it was Deepak that designed the compensation package rather than Gracias. Gracias is on the committee, but that's it. Did not disclose the April 9 conversation between Musk and Aaron Price, during which Musk established the key terms of the 2018 grant. Discussion of the conversation appeared in at least 4 earlier drafts of the proxy. Each of the requirements underlying the performance milestones was selected to be very difficult to achieve, and the board based this new award on stretch goals. Grant's milestones were ambitious. When setting the milestones, the board carefully considered a variety of factors, 3 sets of projections. Let's get through. Under the July 2017 projections, Tesla would achieve 3 of the revenue milestones and all of the adjusted EBITDA milestones in 2020. The proxy did not disclose this. So what? The projections, that's what Tesla's trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve the goals that we're trying to achieve so that Elon can get the compensation he's obviously they're trying to achieve all these goals. And I guarantee you in July 2017, Gordon Johnson was saying they're not going to achieve any of these. And lots of Wall Streeters were going to say they're not going to achieve. And there's, like you said, 20% short sellers. The stock was 20% shorted. Lots of people said they weren't going to achieve these goals. Ahuja developed and Musk approved a new operating plan and projections in December. The longer 3-year projections underlying that plan reflected by 2019 and 2020, Tesla would achieve 7 and 11 operation milestones respectively. The proxy did not disclose this. Why would the proxy disclose underlying business plans? After Tesla issued the proxy, but before the stockholder vote, presented the board with a 3-year operating plan, which Tesla later shared with Moody's. March 8, 2018 projections were more pessimistic than previous projections, but still predicted achievement of 1 revenue and 2 milestones. Tesla would issue a supplemental disclosure of this information, but not until after the stockholder vote. Track support and opposition to the 2018 grant among stockholders and engaged in outreach. The 2 largest proxy advisors, ISS and Glass Lewis, both recommended voting against the 2018 grant. Glass Lewis expressed concern with the size and potential dilutive effect of the grant, noting that any relative comparison of the grant size would be akin to stacking nickels against dollars. The lower tiers of the goals are relatively much more attainable given the time periods in question, potentially allowing for sizable payments without commensurately exceptional achievement. You got to double the market cap. ISS described the grant value as staggering and concluded that even the challenging and far-reaching performance goals do not justify the extraordinary grant magnitude. So, okay, there's clear voices opposing this package. Both recommendations expressed concern with Musk's non-Tesla interests. Stockholders criticized the grant, noting that Musk's Tesla equity provided sufficient motivation. Who's the stockholders criticized? These are just statements in the record. That linear milestones were inappropriate for an exponential company like Tesla. 5 days before the stockholder vote, Marin informed the board that the outcome of the stockholder vote was not yet clear. Although initial vote tallies were favorable, many big stockholders had not yet voted and their intentions remained unclear. Grant would likely receive approval, but the 2 large Tesla stockholders were voting against the grant on the grounds that its size was excessive. Musk asked Marin to tell one of the large stockholders who was very offended by their action if they choose to vote that way, by all means do so. Asked Marin to set up a call with one of the stockholders following the vote, during which Musk would convince them to divest from Tesla and any of his companies ever. They are not welcome. It appears that a non-Musk employee at Tesla called that stockholder after the vote. Stockholders approved the grant at a special stockholder meeting with 73% of votes cast at the meeting, excluding Musk and Kimball's ownership. Okay, because Musk owns 22% and Kimball owns a big chunk. Events relevant to evaluating the fairness of the grant occurred after stockholders approved the grant. Namely, Tesla disclosed that several grant milestones were greater than 70% probability of achievement. Nearly all the tranches vested. Musk got in trouble with the SEC and named himself Techno King, blah, 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 blah. Why does this... Okay, it's unclear why the judge mentions this. Tesla discloses that several of the grant's milestones are probable of achievement. For accounting purposes, on March 27, Berg provided a final fair value letter arriving at grant date fair value of $2.3 billion. How to determine when Tesla was likely to perform its milestones, which Tesla needed to disclose to stockholders in its March 31, 2018. Tesla determined that 3 operational milestones were considered probable achievement, which meant they were greater than 70% probable of achievement within approximately 1 year of the grant date. Oh, wait, what's this here? Tesla's methodology was to determine probability was a set of internal 1-year forecasts developed 1-year and 3-year internal projections on a regular basis. They were not the product of bottom-up forecasting. They were used to drive and motivate rather than plan, and Tesla frequently missed its projections. They reflected what Tesla would need to do to reach aggressive goals set by Musk. Tesla based the March disclosures on the March 2018 projections, described the projections as extremely aggressive and challenging based on stretch goals and very large risks. Yet Tesla disclosed that the following performance milestones were considered probable of achievement. Total revenue $20 billion, EBITDA of $1.5 billion, adjusted EBITDA of $3 billion. March 31 10Q included the usual disclaimer, probability of meeting. This disclosure meant that the 3 operational milestones are 70% probable achievement. We should assume that the second EBITDA, okay. I'm just reading through. There's this argument about whether this is about whether the operational milestones were likely to be achieved. And this is something that you see in the 10Q when they were doing the transfers. Are these likely to be achieved? Grant began vesting in 2020 as Tesla's business took off. Although Tesla's business performance between 2018 and 2020 fell short of the March 2018 projections, slightly it exceeded its projected adjusted EBITDA for 2018. 4 tranches vested by the end of 2020 and 3 more vested the following year. As of April 29, 2022, 11 of the grant's 12 tranches had vested. As of June 30, 2022, all market cap milestones have been achieved, all EBITDA milestones have been achieved, and 3 revenue milestones have been achieved, with 1 more deemed probable of achievement. Settlement over the fraud charges over, I think that's the funding secured tweet. Added new independent directors. Elon stepped down as board chair. Denholm replaced him. I'm not sure why any of this matters. No, this is all. There's all this stuff about the SEC settlement, about the Techno King change from CEO to Techno King. Then came Twitter. What does any of this have to do with Tesla achieving its goals? Tornetta filed his complaint in June 5, 2018. So Tornetta filed his complaint before all this stuff happened. Tornetta, the plaintiff. This is the guy who owns like 8 shares of Tesla. This is what's called procedural. I think this is called this litigation. This would be called the procedural history. This is how everything got to where we got to. I think we can skip over most of this. I'm just skipping over the procedural stuff so we can get to the... Legal analysis claims that awarding the grant constituted a breach of fiduciary duty. In Fire Fander, standard governs for 2 independent reasons: because the grant was a conflicted controller transaction, and separately because the grant was approved by a majority conflicted board. Okay, so here we get into analysis. Where are we? Are we on page 74? Okay. No. Damn it. I don't know why preview is messing with me here. I don't know what just happened. How do we lose the... Where are we? Oh my God. Okay. Legal analysis. We're on page 103 out of 201. Four parts of the analysis. Addresses the gating issue of the standard review, includes the entire fairness applies because Musk exercised control over the grant. Okay, so already I don't agree with this. We have quite a bit of evidence that Deepak Ahuja, Maron, and Aaron Price did things, and the board did things that Elon didn't direct, and that Elon was actually sort of largely hands-off of this process. I don't see a lot of evidence that Musk was hands-on controlling this process. Elon's busy with Tesla. He's busy with his other companies. There's some general hints of this is what I want, and then the board puts it together. Next addresses defendant's argument that the stockholder vote shifted the burden on the entire fairness standard, concluding the defendants retained the burden because the stockholder vote was not fully informed. Now, I don't know the Delaware law. Were the stockholders, do they have to be fully informed? Do they have to be sufficiently informed? Do they have to be perfectly informed? Does the proxy have to be perfect, or does it have to be reasonably close? I don't know the standard. I don't claim to know the standard. Then evaluates the grant under the entire fairness standard, including the defendants failed to prove the grant was entirely fair. Last turns the remedy. And I don't understand how the remedy is Elon gets nothing. I don't understand that. Like, how does Elon get nothing? So we got 100 pages to go. Let me see where we are here. Are people still watching? I don't even know. Are people still watching? How do I know how many people are watching? 98 viewers. Okay, 98 people watching. We'll keep going. The entire fairness standard applies. Wait. Sorry. The entire fairness standard applies because Musk is a controller. When determining whether corporate fiduciaries have breached their duties, okay. Conflicted controller transaction. Entire fairness applies because half the directors approved the grant lacked independence from Musk. Plaintiff wins on the first argument. Musk is a controller. Because he wins on the first argument, imposes fiduciary duties on those who control the corporation. Defendant holds a mathematical majority of the corporation's voting power. He doesn't do that. Musk only controlled 22%, so he lacked mathematical voting control. It's only one method of establishing controller status. Can establish controller status by demonstrating the defendant exercises control over the business affairs of the corporation. For this purpose, a plaintiff need not argue that the defendant exercised general control of the business affairs of the corporation. Showing of general control is sufficient to establish fiduciary status. A plaintiff can establish fiduciary status by demonstrating defendant controlled the particular transaction issue referred to as transaction-specific control. Must show that a defendant or group of defendants exercise sufficient influence that they, as a practical matter, are no differently situated than majority voting control. Ownership of a significant equity stake, right to designate directors, decisional rules and governing documents. Ability to exercise outsized influence in the boardroom, such as a plaintiff must show that the stockholder exercised actual control over the board of directors during the course of a particular transaction. I don't know. I mean, I read the description and it sounded like the board made a lot of decisions on their own, came back to Elon, said, this is what we want to do. And Elon said, okay, but give me less. Both general control and transaction-specific control call for holistic evaluation of sources of influence. Plaintiff advances theories of both general and transaction-specific control. Whether Musk held transaction-specific control with respect to the grant. Plaintiff's argument that Musk controls Tesla might conjure a sense of deja vu. This is because Delaware courts have confronted this precise issue before in a prior lawsuit. Although the Solar City case resulted in 3 opinions, none of them included a finding concerning Musk's status as a controller. Question of whether Musk controls Tesla has thus proven evasive. It is as good a time as any to run it to ground. So once more into the breach, dear friends, once more. This is the judge on I'm going to say making yourself more important than you are. Although it turns out you're very important, but you're basically saying, once more into the breach, you're making yourself, is that a Shakespearean character? I think that's Shakespeare. Yeah, it's Shakespeare, Henry V. So the judge is apparently Henry V. The analysis begins by discussing Musk's stock ownership. Significant. Wielded the maximum influence a manager can wield over the company. His ties to 3 of the 8 directors, Kimball, Gracias, and Murdoch, rendered those directors beholden to him. But Kimball didn't vote. With Musk, they comprised half the board, given Jurvetson's departure. Rest of the fiduciaries acted beholden to Musk in the process leading to the grant. The rest of the fiduciaries acted beholden to Musk in the process leading to the grant. I saw no evidence of this in anything that I read, that the rest of the fiduciaries acted beholden to Musk. This is a conclusion with zero evidence from anything in the opinion so far, in the decision so far. Allowing Musk to dictate the timing of the process and the terms of the grant. Ultimately, the key witnesses said it all. They were there to cooperate with Musk, not negotiate against him. This unique suite of allegations. I don't remember seeing that anywhere in there. They said it wasn't an adversarial process. That doesn't mean it's not a negotiation. Look, I agree that Musk controlled Tesla, but the question is whether he controlled this transaction. And I would say the evidence is that he did not control this transaction. He said what he wanted, and he didn't get what he wanted. All else equal, a relatively larger block size should make an inference of actual control more likely. A 40% block holder has the same effective power in most circumstances, holding mathematical majority. Musk wields significant influence over Tesla by virtue of his stock holdings. Yes. If the holder of a 21.9% block favors a particular outcome, then the holder will win as long as holders of approximately 1 in 3 shares vote the same way. But he didn't vote. By contrast, an opponent must garner approximately 71% of the unaffiliated shares to win. But he didn't vote. He and Kimball didn't vote. They didn't vote their shares. A person who is owner of 20% or more of outstanding voting stock of any corporation shall be presumed to have control of such entity in the absence of proof. I think we can agree that Elon controls Tesla. The point is he didn't control the transaction. A significant block operated in conjunction with supermajority voting requirement for any amendment to Tesla's bylaws. Okay, again, we're talking about whether he can. We know he controls the company. The question is whether he controlled the transaction. And, his 22% block gives him a sizable leg up for stockholders, but he didn't vote. He and Kimball didn't vote. This case involved a failed bylaw amendment, but that's not the situation. So Musk's stock holding was considered in conjunction with the other indicia of control, boardroom and managerial supremacy. Individual might hold high status roles, or an individual might have other key executive or managerial roles. An individual can wield influence if he can interfere with or kibosh management decisions. An individual will have substantial influence if he can replace management. Musk wields considerable power in the boardroom by virtue of his high status roles and managerial supremacy. Indeed, describing Musk's role at Tesla as high status would be a dramatic understatement. At relevant times, occupied the most powerful trifecta of roles: managerial authority. Look, I think we all agree that Elon controls Tesla. But that doesn't say he controlled the transaction. We're like, this is like the judge is spending an inordinate amount of time establishing that Elon controls Tesla, which we agree. That doesn't mean that Elon controlled the transaction, which is the question at issue. Yes, he has huge influence as member of management in the boardroom. Superstar CEO, yes, he is all that. Superstardom is relevant to controller status because the belief in CEO's singular importance shifts the balance of power between management, the board, and the stockholders. When directors believe a CEO is uniquely critical to the corporation's mission, even independent actors are likely to be unduly deferential. Yeah, when he's singularly important to the company, when he's uniquely critical to the company, then you got to compensate him for that, right? They believe that letting the CEO go would be harmful to the company and that alienating the CEO might have a similar effect. Well, yeah. Creates a distortion field. All this is true. But again, he's a superstar CEO. All this is true and obvious. And in this case, the fiduciaries were not staunchly independent, quite the opposite as discussed next. So A director lacks independence if he or she is so beholden to an interested director that his or her discretion be sterilized. 9 directors served on the board at relevant times. Jurvetson can be excluded given his early departure. Musk was one, his brother another. That's 1/4 of the relevant directors. Elon and his brother are not relevant directors because they didn't vote in the transaction. The other 6 had varying degrees of ties of Musk. 4 compensation committee members, Aaron Price, Bust, Denholm, and Gracias, and then turns to Murdoch and Johnson Rice. Gracias had most extensive business and personal dealings with Musk and Kimball. Interest worth over $1 billion in Musk-controlled entities, which is pretty much fucking Tesla. He has just as much of a relationship with Tesla as he had with Elon. Yeah, look, I mean, I agree that Gracias is arguably not an independent director, but, saying it's because he has $1 billion of investments in Musk companies when it's pretty much all Tesla is kind of silly. Gracias' business ties to Musk standing alone support a finding that Gracias lacked independence from Musk. Okay. So, all right. So Gracias lacks independence. Aaron Price also had extensive business and personal relations with Musk, interest worth at least $75 million in Musk-controlled companies other than Tesla, and invested in Kimball's business ventures. Long-standing personal and professional relations with Musk and Kimball that Aaron Price... See, he's leaving out Aaron Price's history as like one of the kings of venture capital in Silicon Valley. Like, what about Aaron Price's other connections? Yeah, he's deeply connected with Musk, but he's deeply connected with a lot of people in Silicon Valley. I forget what Aaron Price's background is. He's sort of like the god of venture capital in Silicon Valley, or one of the leading voices for venture capital in Silicon Valley. He's got significant connections to a lot of people. Are his connections to Elon outsized compared to his connections to other people in Silicon Valley? Not addressed. That's basically saying that nobody in Silicon Valley can be independent if you go with Aaron Price. See, I'm going to disagree with this point. I think Aaron Price is independent, and the judge is taking a odd snapshot of Aaron Price, only looking at Aaron Price's involvement with Elon's companies and not looking at it in the scale of everything else Aaron Price does. My general sense is that Aaron Price, I got to look this up. I don't want to pull this out of my ass. Let's just see. Founder and managing partner of DBL Partners, a leading impact investing venture capital firm, recognized leader in the venture capital industry, having served on the board, executive committee, and annual meeting chairman of the Natural Venture Capital Association. Currently serves as the president of the Western Association of Venture Capitalists, as chairman of the VC Network, the largest and most active California venture capital organization. Awarded the 2018 NACD Directorship 100 for being one of the most influential leaders in the boardroom and corporate governance community. Named one of the top 50 most influential men under 45 in 2007. And 2014 inducted into the International Green Industry Hall of Fame. Served for several years as chairman of Silicon Valley Technology Innovation and Entrepreneurship Forum. Founder and chairman of one of the most prominent... I don't see any of this in the judge's decision. You can look at irtesla.com corporate IRA Aaron Price. Several industry boards, chairman of Silicon Valley Technology Innovation Entrepreneurship Forum. Served for many years on the advisory board for women entrepreneurs. Like, Ira Aaron Price is a big time figure in the VC industry, and to say he's too close to Elon based solely on his basically what do we have? I mean, look at this. Extensive business and personal relationships with Musk, interest worth at least $75 million in Musk-controlled companies other than Tesla. So he invested in SpaceX, and he invested in Kimball's business ventures. But what else has he invested in? How many other investments does this guy have? This guy's a VC. He's probably got hundreds of investments, maybe even 1,000 investments in other companies. What percentage of his net worth is tied into this? And look, he owns a lot of Tesla stock, so it's a big chunk of his net worth. But outside of Tesla, what are his investments add up to compared to everything else? And where's the description of the personal relationship? He went to Kimball's wedding. Is that all you got? And they're friends? I don't see a lot here. The same is true of Denholm and Bust. Their most significant, potentially comprising factor is the compensation he's received as a Tesla director. This is Tesla. That's their connection to Tesla, not their connection to Elon. Outsized direct, but plaintiff does not argue that Musk established Bust and Denholm's compensation so as to render them beholden. He's claiming that Robin Denholm and Buss are not independent directors. Okay. That's shocking to me. They're independent of Elon. They may be deeply connected to Tesla. When the company grows as much as it does and you get options, obviously becomes a large share of your net worth. Murdoch lacked independence due to personal connection with Musk, a longtime friend of Musk before he joined the board. They repeatedly vacation together with respective families. It was during one such trip. Johnson Rice had no compromising personal or business ties to Musk. Plaintiff concedes as such. It is easy to conclude based on the nature of relationships with Musk that Kimball, Gracias, and Murdoch. I can understand Gracias. Look, Musk and Kimball and Elon, Kimball, and Gracias did not vote. Murdoch, really? Delaware courts consider not only the director's relationship, but also how they acted with respect to that party. Directors with strong ties to a controller may demonstrate their independence. Directors without strong individual ties to a controller may fall victim to a controlled mindset. The question of whether the large blockholder has control may be relevant. It's disinterested stockholders. Whether the merger was approved by uncoerced independent directors seeking solely to advance the interests of the corporation and its disinterested stockholders rather than by supine servants of an overweening master. There's no greater evidence of Musk's status as a transaction-specific controller than the board's posture toward Musk during the process that led to the grant. Put simply, neither the compensation committee nor the board acted in the best interest of the company when negotiating Musk's compensation plan. In fact, there's barely any evidence of negotiations at all. Rather than negotiate against Musk with the mindset of a third party, the compensation committee worked alongside him almost as an advisory body. Multiple aspects of the process reveal Musk's control. What were they supposed to do? Were they supposed to say, hey, Elon, we got to be adversarial. We're going to look at bringing in another CEO. They said it was a collaborative process. It wasn't an adversarial process. That doesn't mean he controlled it. Musk controlled the timing. I went through this before. He did not control the timing. He did delay it. He delayed it at one point. And then there was another delay that was not obviously his delay because they needed to talk to large shareholders. The fact that he delayed the process, I don't see why that's a big deal. He didn't rush him. He gave him time. Musk unilaterally set the timer, made last-minute proposals to the board prior to 6 out of the 10 board or compensation committee meetings, dictated when the game. I agree that he delayed the timing. I don't agree that he controlled the timing. There was no negotiation over the size of the grant. The most striking omission from this process is the absence of any evidence of adversarial negotiations between the board and Musk concerning the size of the grant. Hey, we agree it wasn't adversarial. They openly said it wasn't adversarial. But they did reduce the package. He lowered his ask. Compensation committee considered a variety of award sizes. Presentation value of the 15% award only. Because anybody can figure out that 7.5% is half the value of 15%. Come on, and 10% is 2/3 of 15%. You need a valuation for that? For fuck's sake. When Marin received Musk's new offer, he compared it to Musk's original proposal, not any alternatives. Musk's 15 tranche was locked in as the operating assumption. It changed from 15 to 12 to 10, and there's no evidence that Elon pushed any of those changes. Or to 15 to 10 to 12 or whatever. Aaron Price avoided saying that he or anyone else negotiated with Musk about the market cap increase, again, merely describing the changes that took place. I don't understand, Do they have to go to Elon and say, hey, we're raising the market cap 100 billion, and Elon says, I don't like that? Says, well, that's what they're doing, and Elon says, okay, does that make it a negotiation? It's not adversarial. That doesn't mean it's not a negotiation. And it doesn't have to be a negotiation. This is what we think is the appropriate compensation. There's no meaningful negotiation over the other terms of the grant. Yeah, they imposed the other terms of the grant, and Elon said, okay. There was no effort to keep Musk engaged despite his significant time commitments. Delaware recognizes that asking the controlling stockholder to consider alternative options can change the negotiating dynamic. Whether Musk should commit a level of time to Tesla was a planned topic of discussion. None of the participants raised the issue. The issue was not raised in this compensation structure because the idea was silly, or did not ask for such a requirement because that would have been like saying goodbye to Elon. Okay. Defendants claim Musk would have rejected such restrictions, but the court will never know because the committee and its advisors never had the gumption to even give it the weakest of tries. He said, I'm not doing it. No benchmarking analysis compared to proposed compensation plan to plans comparable. There's nothing comparable. We agree. We know there's nothing comparable. So there was no benchmarking of the plan. Defendants proffered reasons for not performing a traditional benchmarking study. Offered reasons, but each rang hollow. Argued that the board considered a lot of data that all fit with the overall bucket of benchmarking throughout the process. Information about other CEOs. One of the slides lists the largest CEO pay packages in 2016, but no one contends that this constituted a benchmarking analysis. Brown also testified it would have been difficult to find comparable companies for a benchmarking study. It could have developed a peer group using some judgment. More telling that Brown took the position that benchmarking was unnecessary because the award would be too large for useful comparison. He had a good idea of what would happen if they performed a traditional benchmarking study, and that it wasn't going to be useful information to the committee because the grant was so divorced from the market for comparable executives. Right. Traditional benchmarking is inept if the company's executives and plans are not comparable. That's a hard sell. Musk's job was the same as ever the other public company CEO, improve earnings and create value. Yeah, not 12x. How many company CEOs are tasked with 10xing the company and receiving no money if it doesn't happen? Benchmarking would have informed the decision makers of the magnitude of the difference between the grant and market comparables. They told the value. The value was $2.6 billion or $2.3 billion. In the end, the defense witnesses said it all, took the lead on the grant for the compensation committee. Marin was one of the primary go-betweens. When asked to describe the process, none viewed the process as an arm's length negotiation. Each viewed it as a form of collaboration with Musk. So basically what the judge is saying is that board members have to be hostile to the CEO in negotiating his compensation package. But how do you have these, how do you have adversarial negotiations when you don't have an alternative CEO? How are you supposed to have adversarial negotiations? How is that supposed to work? It's like the judge is saying right here, they did not acknowledge it was a cooperative and collaborative process. So running a company in a cooperative and collaborative way rather than an adversarial way is apparently against Delaware law. Defendants bore the burden, which I disagree with. Defendants bore the burden of proving the grant was entirely fair because Musk exercised transaction-specific control. I don't agree with that finding. Entire fairness is a standard of review. So this is the important conclusion. They have to prove that the stockholder vote was fully informed, comprised of all material information. Omitted fact is material only when there's a substantial. An omitted fact is material only when there's a substantial likelihood that a reasonable shareholder would consider it important in deciding how to vote. Courts must balance the benefits of additional disclosure against the risk that insignificant information may dilute potentially valuable information. Plaintiffs advanced many arguments for why the stockholder vote was not fully informed. Two are clear winners. The record established the proxy failed to disclose the compensation committee members' potential conflicts and omitted material information concerning the process. Defendants sought to prove otherwise, and they generally contend this. Look, we all knew that Kimball was his brother. We all knew that Gracias was a board member of SpaceX and close to Elon. We didn't need a proxy to tell us that. I don't know. I'm like, I follow the company. Is it that the proxy has to tell us stuff we already know? Are there shareholders who didn't know that Kimball was Elon's brother? Failed to disclose any of the compensation committee members' actual or potential conflicts with respect to Musk. Frequently describes them as independent. So, is there a fair point that Gracias isn't independent? I think so. I think there's a fair point that Gracias is not an independent director. Is that material isn't important? I don't think so. I don't think the other directors are not independent. And I don't understand that the determination that, like Robin Denholm and Aaron Price, the way the facts are done about Aaron Price, leaving out everything else he does and just focusing on what he's done with Tesla and SpaceX and a couple other companies maybe, and Kimball misses a lot. Musk's relationships with Aaron Price and Gracias gave rise. I can see the argument about Gracias. I don't see it about Aaron Price. Proxy disclosed the Tesla director compensation policy, which is one potential source of conflict. Discuss some potential source of conflict, such as buses, tenure at Solar City, and Aaron Price and Gracias. So it does disclose their investments in SpaceX. But it doesn't disclose Gracias and Aaron Price's personal and other business relationships with. Wait a minute. What other business relationship? I mean, yes, Gracias and Aaron. Like, what did Aaron Price is his friend? You work this closely together on a whole bunch of things. You're going to be friends. I don't. Also sought to prove that disclosure of the potential conflicts was unnecessary because it wrongly obliged him to characterize their conduct in a way to admit wrongdoing. Proxy could have discussed the relevant relationships while stating the board did not view them as a serious impediments to independence, thereby allowing stockholders to make their own assessment. What defendants were not free to do was take the position that stockholders had no right to know this important information. Okay. The process disclosures. The proxy does not disclose the level of control that Musk exercised over the processes. Okay, so I don't agree here that Musk exercised that much control over the process. The fact that he made the initial offer, the fact that he changed, like, I don't see that is significant. Parties focus on one specific omission, does not disclose the April 9 conversation between Musk and Aaron Price. With the 2012 performance award nearing completion, the board engaged in more than 6 months of active and ongoing discussions regarding a new compensation program, ultimately concluding its decision to grant the CEO Performance Award. These discussions first took place among members of the compensation committee, all of them independent, including its newest independent directors, Linda Johnson Rice and James Murdoch. Even accepting defendant's borderline reading, the April 9 conversation between Musk and Aaron Price was material and should have been disclosed. That seems like total crap to me. Like, I don't understand what any of this difference makes. The key terms argument. Is there some legal authority for the process matters this much? May not create a false narrative for how as to the process. Disclosure need not give a play-by-play. When fiduciaries choose to provide the history of the transaction, they have an obligation to provide with an accurate, full, and fair characterization of those historic events. So by saying we spent 6 months negotiating this. You had to tell them everything. I don't know enough about that one legally to say whether he's wrong, whether she's wrong or not. Because the most important details of the grant were disclosed. Implicitly, defendant argued the stockholders only knew the economics of the transaction to cast an informed vote. Because defendants failed to show that the stockholder vote was fully informed, they bore the burden of improving entire fairness. Entire fairness review. Concept of fairness has two basic aspects: fair dealing and fair price when the transaction was timed, economic and financial considerations. Defendants failed to prove that the grant was product of fair dealing or at a fair price. Timing of the first discussion was dictated by Aaron Price, not Musk. Aaron Price credibly testified he initiated this discussion because Tesla had reached nearly all the milestones of the pre-retired compensation plan. No evidence that Musk was secretly behind the start of negotiations, nor is there any evidence that Musk set the table for the negotiations by acting in a manipulative, duplicitous manner. Although Musk did not manipulate the initial timing of the process, he repeatedly and unilaterally manipulated the timeline of the process. Musk's team. See, it's interesting. He's describing basically Marin and Aaron Price as Musk's team, when that's a conclusion that seems inaccurate, because they're creating details and telling Elon this is what we're going to do, and Elon saying okay, rather than Elon telling them what to do. Musk's red light, green light approach negatively affected the process. Most of the work occurred during small bursts. Musk's habit of shaking up the timeline or changing his proposal just before a meeting made it tough for the directors and advisors to meaningfully evaluate the grant and respond. This is how Musk manages everything. So I don't know, but I don't think he's managing this. I don't think it's fair to say he's managing this process. How the transaction was negotiated and structured. Although defendants cast the negotiations as the strongest aspect of the process, they're actually most dramatic failures. Form over substance. Defendants' tallies of time spent are merely superficial indicia. Compensation committee was compromised conflicts. They could not negotiate at arm's length against Musk. No evidence of any adversarial negotiation. Again, like they said it wasn't adversarial. It wasn't adversarial. It wasn't adversarial. So, okay. Defendants are correct. Okay, defendants are correct that all else equal, requiring more growth in market cap for the same number of shares means a better deal for stockholders. There's no credible evidence that the shift from 10 tranches to 12 and the associated increase in the difficulty of the market cap targets resulted from any actual negotiation with Musk. Why would that matter? What does negotiation have to be? Hey, Elon, we're doing this. Okay. Is that not negotiation? The board backed into 12 tranches when translating Musk's demand of 10%. Were they supposed to negotiate a more rigorous clawback provision, and why would that have mattered? Independent advisors cannot help the analysis because they played no role in negotiations. There were no negotiations. We all agree with that. Defendants agree that benchmarking is standard and essential. You can't have, see this thing, saying they should have had arm's length bargaining. You can't have arm's length bargaining when you can't lose the CEO. I don't understand. Like, how do you have arm's length bargaining? Like, what's the arm's length bargaining? Elon, if you don't agree to this, we're going to find another CEO? Like, why? This is nonsense. Whether a transaction was structured to require approval of an independent board negotiating committee or a majority of the minority vote is another important issue of fairness. Musk and Kimball recused themselves. 5 of the 6 directors were beholden to Musk or had compromising conflicts. Yeah, I don't agree with that, but whatever. Fair price. And the fair price analysis looks at the economic and financial considerations. Fair price and fair value standards call for equivalent economic inquiries. The court's task is to determine, this is probably one of the biggest issues here, whether the transaction price falls within a range of fairness. No absolute limit on the magnitude of a compensation grant, but process can infect price, and where pricing terms cannot be justified, blah, blah, blah. Defendants primarily urge the court to evaluate the price by comparing the terms of the exchange, what Tesla gave against what Tesla got. Argue the grant was all upside for the Tesla stockholders to say they risked nothing and gave 6% for $600 billion. There are many ways to analyze price fairness, and there's a good reason to reject the give-get model where no market-based evidence support the price. Grant was only upside for the additional reason the grant structure aligned Musk's interests with shareholders. Grant milestones were ambitious and difficult to achieve. Each of defendants' arguments failed, did not prove that the grant falls within range of fairness. Oh my God, that's a lot of footnote. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get through this to find. Equity-based compensation plans continues to be a powerful way to reduce agency costs and align the interests of management with those of stockholders. Agency costs are where it's called the principal agent model. The agent is working for the shareholders of the principal, and the executive is the agent. And if the agent isn't aligned with the shareholders, then the agent might do things in his own interest that don't benefit the shareholders. So having equity-based compensation aligns interests. But where an executive has a sizable pre-existing equity stake, there's a good argument that the executive's interests are already aligned with those of the stockholders. Okay? There are many examples of visionaries with large pre-existing equity holdings foregoing compensation entirely. Zuckerberg, Bezos, Gates, and others so familiar in the world that no first names are required. But none of those executives had other companies that would take their time away. None of those executives had other companies that would take their time away. Zuckerberg doesn't have another company to go to. Bezos, I guess, could go to Blue Origin, and basically Bezos left. Gates didn't have another company to go to. In each instance, they recognized that the executive's pre-existing ownership stake provided sufficient executive incentives. But Elon has other companies he could go to, not considered here. Why did Tesla have to give anything in these circumstances? He owned 22%. So no mention here that Elon has other options. There's no mention here that Elon could go work for SpaceX full time and decide, you know what, I'm going to take a lesser role at Tesla, and what effect would that have had on the stock? The principal defect with defendant's give-get argument is it does not address the $55.8 billion question. See, here the judge is using the final value rather than the fair value at the date of grant. Given Musk's pre-existing equity stake, was the grant within the range of reasonable approaches to achieve the board's purported goals? Or at a minimum, could the board have accomplished its goals at less, and would Musk have taken it? Musk stood to gain considerably from achieving the market. Okay. Again, the judge is focused on the $55 billion instead of the $2.6 billion. This is really striking. This is the judge focusing on the end. It's rather, I don't see any mention of the valuation of the plan at the beginning. That's the question that should be addressed here. Why set milestones at the time of grant that were 70%? Okay, that's not. Defendants also argue that Musk would needed additional incentives to stay on at Tesla or to spend more time at SpaceX where he could fulfill his galactic ambitions. That begs another question. If encouraging Musk to prioritize Tesla over his other ventures is so important, why not place guardrails on how much time or energy Musk had to put into Tesla? Even assuming the truth of all defendants' points, they do not add up. There's simply no evidence that the added incentive provided by a grant of this magnitude was necessary, much less fair. Again, no mention in this part of the decision of the market value at the time of the grant. The judge is treating this as a $55 billion award instead of what it was, a $2.3 or $2.5 billion award. Pairing market cap with operational milestones provided safety in the structure. Just reading through defendants' arguments. Defendants argue the grant price was fair because its milestones were ambitious and difficult to achieve. Defendants' witnesses all testified in harmony they were audacious and extraordinarily ambitious. It's hard to square defendants' coordinated trial testimony concerning Tesla's internal projections with the contemporaneous evidence. So the judge is focused on the early parts of the tranche, the early tranches, which were within reach by the time the plan was approved. Defendants failed to prove their factual predicates that all the milestones were ambitious and difficult to achieve. Okay, like you're saying it's $55 billion award, and then you're talking about the billions or so at the beginning. And look, you had a valuation of $2.6 billion in value. Why are you ignoring that value? Defendants offer no theoretical justification for carrying the grant to venture capital. Okay, blah, blah, blah. They're comparing it to private equity, and the judge is not having it. By its most conservative comparison, the plaintiff's experts could conceivably devise the grant date fair value was 11.7x larger than the median peer group. Indeed, the grant entitled Musk to billions, even if Tesla significantly underperformed its historical results. Dissenter stockholder approval is compelling evidence the price was fair. Stockholder vote is one component of fair value, fair price analysis. Stockholder vote is only comparing on this evidence of fairness absent a disclosure violation. Uninformed stockholder vote is totally meaningless. The stockholder vote is a meaningless indicator as to fair price. Significant public information available concerning that issue, traded in an efficient market. Because the stockholder vote was not fully informed, it does not support a finding a fair price. We knew what the tranches were. We knew the amounts. We knew what that's bullshit. Defendants finally argue from hindsight to claim the grant was fair because it worked. Tesla thrived because of the 2018 plan. Asked the court to infer a direct causal relationship. Failed to prove that Musk's less than full-time efforts for Tesla were solely or directly responsible for Tesla's recent growth. And then we get to rescission. This is the big question. Lead argument is must rescind the grant. Court has discretion to order rescission as a remedy for creates an overly rigid rule. Second argument prevails. Let's find the argument that the judge ruled in favor. Rescission is warranted, not given for every serious mistake. The court has broad discretion to award rescission where the facts and circumstances warrant. This court has awarded rescission as a remedy for breach of fiduciary duty. To be entitled to equitable rescission, a plaintiff must demonstrate that rescission is both reasonable and appropriate under the circumstances. The grant is not too complex to unscramble. Rescission is uniquely available. No third-party interests are implicated. The entire grant sits unexercised and undisturbed, and exercised shares would be subject to the 5-year hold period. Defendants argue that rescission is a harsh consequence that would leave Musk uncompensated, but Musk's pre-existing equity stake... What the hell happened? Musk's pre-existing equity stake provided him tens of billions of dollars for his efforts, and defendants have not offered a viable alternative short of leaving the grant intact. Okay, so here's a critical detail. Did the defendant say, hey, listen, if you're going to overturn this pay package, here's an alternative that would make sense? Valiant, the directors of Valiant Pharmaceuticals International breached their fiduciary duties by awarding themselves and other executives and employees large cash bonuses in connection with a later aborted corporate restructuring. All but one defendant settled before trial. If this is something where they defrauded shareholders. As in Valiant, defendant heralded the grant as fair, but failed to meet their burden. They all failed to identify any logical defensible. I don't know what this Valiant case is, but it sounds like a situation where they defrauded shareholders and the directors awarded themselves lots of money. Not that they awarded the CEO lots of money. Nothing in the record to allow the court to fashion a remedy that would order rescission only to the extent the grant was unfair. Once a breach of duty is established, uncertainties and warning damage are generally resolved against the wrongdoer. Here, the wrongdoers are against the defendants. The court resolves a certain uncertainty against them. Okay, so for the foregoing reasons, judgment is entered in plaintiff's favor. Parties are to confer on form of final order. So now here's the question. So that's the decision. All right, so I'm going to close this. Let's go to, where are we? Okay, let me look. It's a she, blah, blah, blah. Let me just see if we have any. I don't know where the chat is. We got a bunch of, we have 3 replies. So I don't see a chat. I don't see replies. So, do I have any DMs? Yeah, the judge is female. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Just ignore the chat. Okay. So, okay. So I think that's it. I don't think I have anything more to add at this point. I don't know where a chat would be, so I'm going to have to let it go. So I want to thank everyone for watching, and I'm going to post this stream on YouTube, and then I'm probably going to live stream again on YouTube. I may redo this stream on YouTube directly because that makes more sense. I think it's 11:34 at night on the East Coast. I'll think about it. All right. So thanks everybody so much for watching. Please reply to the post. Let me know what you think, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.